Majority Report with Sam Seder, where every day's Casual Friday. That means Monday is Casual Monday, Tuesday, Casual Tuesday, Wednesday, Casual Hump Day, Thursday, Casual Thurs, that's what we call it, and Friday, Casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
It is Friday, November 15th, 2019. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. Nothing casual about this Friday, ladies and gentlemen. However, joining us, Emma Vigeland from the Young Turks, and also Judy Gold from her birthday. It's her birthday today.
I'm sure she'll be in a great mood.
Completely insane day, ladies and gentlemen. Breaking news. Roger Stone was just found guilty on multiple counts of witness tampering and lying to Congress. 7-count indictment that alleged he lied to lawmakers about WikiLeaks, tampered with witnesses, and obstructed a House Intelligence Committee probe. Also on the program today, as we speak, former Ukrainian Ambassador Yovanovitch induces Trump to commit illegal witness tampering in public moments ago. And speaking of going to prison, Rudy Giuliani, maybe it's time he reaches out to his old pal Bernie Kerik to get some doing time tips. Meanwhile, back to the impeachment, a second government official overheard the now infamous Sondland Trump call, where Trump was just asking about the investigations, and Sondland said he doesn't care about Ukraine. Then, the DOJ's investigation of the deep state, the investigation of the investigators, is becoming highly irregular in the way they're going about it. In Kentucky, Matt Bevin concedes. Andy Beshear announces that on day one, he will reinstate the voting rights for 140,000 people. And a career Office of Management budget official is expected to break ranks and testify in the impeachment hearings. Meanwhile, in a perfect example of how the Democrats get very nervous when things are going in their way, they're on the brink of a massive sellout on Trump's new NAFTA. Ayanna Pressley introduces a major decarceration plan in the House, and the Senate confirms a Second Circuit judge who is opposed by every existing civil and women's rights groups in the country. Lastly, another mass shooting takes 2 teenagers' lives in California, as well as the life of the shooter, 16-year-old boy. All this and more on today's program. Ladies and gentlemen, a lot of stuff going on today. Far too much for any single day. And just a little bit of a programming note. We did not follow the hearings today. In many respects this morning, I regretted it. I was watching it. Right now, I think they're just starting with the questioning by the Republican counsel. I will talk about this a little bit later, but the long and short of it is Marie Yovanovitch was the former ambassador to Ukraine. Her testimony was far more compelling, frankly, than I had anticipated it would be. Insofar as it outlined just the lengths in which they went to promote the investigation of Biden and to this sort of revisionist history of 2016 interference. And I think it raised the stakes of just the relevance of having like a non-corrupted diplomatic corps. I will also say that if you wanted to choose a set of witnesses for any type of hearings, and you wanted them to be compelling, well-spoken, confident, coming off as completely neutral professionals, it feels like you would want to pick witnesses from the diplomatic corps. They, and it becomes obvious after you watch it, but you listen to Bill Taylor, you listen to Yovanovitch, even Kent, who didn't have as much of a compelling story to tell, but nevertheless, they all deliver it in such a way that you're like, they're all Jimmy Stewarts in some respect. And during her testimony, literally during her testimony, they were talking about how she felt a little bit threatened by some of the things that the president had said. And she didn't understand, what really a lot of what was going on. And during the testimony, it is Donald Trump starts tweeting about her. Now, this is witness tampering. This is witness intimidation. It was ongoing. They stopped the hearing at one point. Schiff announced that was happening and made it clear we take witness tampering very, very seriously. I would sort of be shocked at this point if one of the counts of impeachment did not include and cite that very act. Simultaneously, literally within moments after that, Roger Stone is convicted by a jury in his trial of witness tampering. And I have a feeling that was specifically about Randy Credico, but I don't know the specific indictments. We will see those. But all this is going on simultaneously. And we should also say that apparently there was almost 14 million people who watched. At any given time, there were 14 million people watching the testimony the other day of Taylor and Kent. That's not including what was happening on the streaming. So there is a significant subset of Americans who are paying attention to this. I would imagine it is, again, I reiterate, this is going to have big implications in certain Senate races. From an electoral standpoint, I wouldn't imagine that it goes much further than that. I suppose it could. It's certainly going to mitigate. It's hard for me to believe that had they not done this, that there wouldn't be some backlash in terms of Democrats. There is one thing, and it is hard to assess this, but it's worth noting. There were two Democrats who voted against these impeachment proceedings. One of them is from New Jersey. What's his name again? I can't remember. What is it? Drew, right? Jeff Van Drew. Jeff Van Drew's race, as of 3 weeks ago, prior to the vote, was lean Democrat. It has now been changed in its assessment, I think by Cook, to toss-up. Now, I haven't looked at the numbers. I don't know if there's a way that they can make this assessment, but on its face, it would appear that his voting against going forward with impeachment may have undercut his Democratic support. I mean, it's a toss-up district, but nevertheless, he seems to be moving in the wrong direction. So I don't know, but it's a data point. I don't know exactly how to assess it, but I don't know, maybe something has changed in that district in the past, month or so to change that rating. But that's the only thing that's quite obvious. Maybe it could be that Republicans are that much madder at him as opposed to in other districts across the country. I don't know. But that could go either way. But he voted against it. It didn't help him, apparently. That much is clear. All right. Let's go to this clip of Marie Yovanovitch. This, it's a short clip. She's being questioned by the Democratic counsel, Andrew Goldman. Daniel Goldman. Forgive me, folks. It's Casual Friday. I'm not even wearing a hard collared shirt. Daniel Goldman is asking her about sort of, this is the one of the key exchanges, but her testimony was full of this, and it really I found it far more compelling than I had anticipated. Here it is.
You said there were concerns up the street. What did you understand that to mean?
The White House.
I pause it now. Okay, so she's being contacted from someone at the State Department saying there's concerns about you from up the street. Now, she had a review in March where she got, straight A's or whatever it is. Whatever you get as a member of the diplomatic corps. Then she saw the Rudy Giuliani going around and saying stuff about her as being problematic. And Donald Trump Jr. saying stuff about her that was problematic. And she's like, what's going on? Why am I being attacked by Rudy Giuliani and Donald Trump Jr. on Twitter? And so she's getting wind of all this. Now, remember, she also testified that Joe Biden, when he came over and said, we need to get rid of this prosecutor, that was official government policy. The U.S. policy was public. We need to get rid of this prosecutor because he's corrupt. We need to get rid of this prosecutor because we've been asked by other countries who are trying to do investigations into Burisma that this prosecutor is blocking us from doing it. And so she doesn't understand U.S. stated policy. She's following U.S. stated policy. She's a professional. She has no idea why she's being attacked. And she gets word that there's a problem with her from where? Up the street. What did up the street mean? I think it meant the White House.
Street. What did you understand that to mean?
The White House.
Did she explain in any more detail what she meant by concerns about your security?
No, she didn't. I did specifically ask whether this had to do with the Mayor Giuliani's allegations against me and so forth, and she said she didn't know. It didn't even actually appear to me that she seemed to be aware of that. No reason was offered.
Did she explain what the urgency was for you to come back on the next flight?
The only thing that's pertinent to that was that when she said that there were concerns about my security. That's all. But it was not further explained.
Now, prior to this abrupt callback to Washington, D.C., had you been offered an extension of your post by the State Department?
Yes, the Undersecretary for Political Affairs had asked whether I would extend for another year, departing in July of 2020.
When was that request made?
In early March.
So about a month and a half before this call?
Yes.
Did anyone at the State Department ever express concerns about your job performance?
No.
Now, after you returned to Washington a couple days after that, you met with the Deputy Secretary of State. And at your deposition, you said that the Deputy Secretary of State told you that you had done nothing wrong, but that there was a concerted campaign against you. What did he mean by that?
I'm not exactly sure, but I took it to mean that the allegations that Mayor Giuliani and others were putting out there, that's what it was.
And who else was involved in this concerted campaign against you?
There were some members of the press and others in Mayor Giuliani's circle.
And who from Ukraine?
In Ukraine, I think, Mr. Lutsenko, the prosecutor general, and Mr. Shokin, his predecessor, certainly.
And at this time, Mr. Lutsenko was the lead prosecutor general, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And had President Zelensky indicated whether or not he was going to keep him on after the election?
He had indicated he would not be keeping on Mr. Lutsenko.
And I believe you testified earlier that Mr. Lutsenko had a reputation for being corrupt, is that right?
That's correct.
Now, during this conversation, did the Deputy Secretary tell you about your future as the ambassador to Ukraine?
Well, he told me I needed to leave.
What did he say?
He said that, there was a lot of back and forth, but ultimately he said the words that, every Foreign Service officer understands: the president has lost confidence in you. That was, a terrible thing to hear. And I said, well, I guess I have to go then. But no real reason was offered as to why I had to leave and why it was being.
Okay, and that's basically it. That's the gist of the story. That Giuliani, his two clients or associates who are actually on trial now, or in police custody, Parnas and the other guy, were working with Lutsenko, who was the corrupt prosecutor in Ukraine, and Yovanovitch was an obstacle to them to create this new fiction. They needed to have their person do it. And who was their person? It was Sondland. They brought in the ambassador to the EU. And then I think they realized, wait a second. We may need somebody who actually knows whose phone numbers are which in the Ukrainian government. Let's bring in Bill Taylor. Now, little did they know they were bringing in Serpico, but this is how it progressed. You'll recall in Bill Taylor's testimony, when he was brought in, he said, I'm a little concerned because I just saw what happened to Yovanovitch, and I don't want to get involved in that meat grinder. She just got taken out for what appears to be no reason. And they brought him in. They tried to sequester him, to keep him on the so-called regular track and not awares of what was happening on the irregular track, which is why it took him so long to understand what was happening. And about 2 months in, it starts to occur to him, something weird is going on here. And that's why I think they brought in Yovanovitch, is to make it clear, the origins of this. What they sort of did from a narrative structure is they put the loaded gun on the table with Bill Taylor in Kent. And then they went back to tell the story of where the gun was and what, and then what happens. And next week, on Tuesday, we're going to hear from 4 people, I think it is. We're going to hear from Vigland. This is the Ukrainian expert who was on the call. We're going to hear about the cover-up. Who else are we hearing from on Tuesdays? There's 2 or 3 other people. On Wednesday, we will hear from Sondland. So it's Tim Morrison is going to be there on Tuesday. He is the NSC director for Russia affairs. He is on some of those text messages. He was one of the guys sort of in the regulars. Jennifer Williams was Pence's national security aide. It's going to be interesting to see where she lands on this. Kurt Volker was a special envoy to Ukraine. He was also part of the irregulars. And it's going to be interesting to see what he has to say. And then the coup de grace will be Sunderland on Wednesday. we're going to do all-day coverage on Tuesday for those hearings. We're going to do all-day coverage on Wednesday for those hearings. Then roll into the debate on Wednesday night. It's going to be a long couple of days. By Thursday, I imagine we're just going to do recaps of those things. So this is important stuff. I think it's, I think you could do 4 more of these, like little vignettes, if you will. This is like, it reminds me of, my kid and the books that he reads. You got the Magic Tree House, and then you got a bunch of different versions that are variations of this overall story. And the overall story is the Trump administration incredibly corrupt. And here's how they were corrupt in Ukraine. You could do here's how they were corrupt in regards to Turkey. Here's how they were corrupt in regards to Saudi Arabia.
Here's how they were corrupt in a boat. Here's how they were corrupt with a goat.
Exactly. And at one point, I think you could probably sew these things together in some way. There's just a lot of people making a lot of money and also trying to establish, get political benefit out of these things.
Well, can I ask like a wide angle question here? Because okay, we know that they probably do not have the votes to remove Trump from office. Right?
I would say that's almost 100% the case.
So if all of these corruption crimes come out in the course of these hearings and Trump is not removed, isn't that going to be just incredibly depressing as an indictment of our system?
Well, it's going to be an indictment not of our system, it seems to me. It's going to be an indictment of a political party that is refusing to convict him. The more airtight this case is, and it's voted upon by the Democrats in the House, and it's sent to the Senate, to the extent that they have established that this guy is super corrupt, this is all on Mitch McConnell. This is what we were arguing for people who are arguing for impeachment, strictly on political terms. This was one of the primary reasons, is because even though you're not going to be able to remove him from office, you're going to make it very explicit as to what is the obstacle to remove this guy who is uniquely corrupt. Which is not to say that every president, I certainly think that we could have impeached George Bush. And in many respects, what he did caused far more pain and horror, frankly, than so far what Donald Trump has done. And I think we should have impeached George Bush. I think he could have been impeached after the fact, in a myriad of different ways. But the way that you get accountability is not by providing less attempts at accountability.
No, I know.
And I think, yes, will it be depressing that Mitch McConnell does this? But I found it depressing that he wouldn't let, a Supreme Court justice, even one that I wasn't particularly thrilled about, have a hearing. All of this sucks. It all sucks. And the question is how do you get to a place of less suckiness? And you don't get there unless you start to point out, here is the biggest purveyor of suckiness. And it's the Republican Party. And then once you start to get rid of that factor in our system of government, then you can start working on the more nuanced suckiness, in my estimation. And these aren't necessarily, it doesn't necessarily have to be completely sequential. Although I think it helps. When you have an all Democratic government, it's much easier to isolate where the suckiest parts of the Democratic Party are. In fact, I would argue that part of the reason why we got things like Occupy in 2011, as opposed to any other time, not because there's some type of magic number where 3 years out from a devastating financial crisis is when people rebel. It's when you become frustrated with the failure of the people that you thought were going to fix it, and they're not fixing it.
Oh, yeah. People were incredibly disillusioned with Obama.
Exactly. And you can't get to that point unless you get rid of George Bush. Right? I mean, if John McCain is in office in 2011, it's a different, you have to work through a different thing, which is, gets back to why I always felt like for the actual growth of the left, the better foil would have been Hillary Clinton than Donald Trump. Because now, and to the extent that I was surprised by any of it, was just the ability to sort of like distinguish between the left and the resistance. Last time around, that did not exist. But even to the extent that happens, it still convolutes the fight, I think.
I would have occupied Wall Street regardless.
Well, that's true, but it wouldn't have had the same impact. I mean, with all due respect. You could have done that. Where were you in 2009? All right. Folks, one of today's sponsors is News Voice, which is the first ever entirely open, crowdsourced, and democratized platform for news. You can download the app for free at newsvoice.com/majority. Look, in this country, the vast majority of news, as you know, is owned by the same 5 huge corporations. In fact, Google has changed their algorithm in such a way that the reason why we're getting less views from non-subscribers is because they've changed their algorithm. And so if you look at one of our videos, instead of seeing videos from other independent sort of news aggregators, purveyors, whatever you want to call it, you'll see now MSNBC or CNN or Fox or whatever.
Our stream on Wednesday was beating Vice by about 2-1, and Vice was on the front page. We weren't.
Huh. Shocking. I wonder why that is. Maybe they haven't heard of our $1 billion valuation that I have now imposed on our show. But anyways, the point is this. It's important for you to pay attention where your news is coming from, who owns which media outlets, which political biases are in play. We're pretty out front with where our biases are. That doesn't exist in other places. And the way you do that is via News Voice. It's free. It's crowdsourced. It's a mobile app. It's a website. It lets you create a personal news feed and maintain a clear picture of where your news is coming from, what political slants may exist. It gives you the opportunity to compare different perspectives. It helps you aggregate news from corporate outlets, international outlets, local news, independent media, giving you access to every side of every story. A lot of times I get questions like, how can I become more savvy about the media I'm consuming? You go to a platform like this that aggregates different sources, and you begin to get savvy after a while as you read this stuff and you see the differences. News Voice is fueled by its community of users. They contribute to the platform. They fact check. They submit stories. They upvote stories. They write story summaries. You can comment on stories. You can debate politics with other members if you want there. And when you stay active in the community, you level up and earn perks on the platform. The News Voice Play feature lets you listen to your personal news feed every day through customizable audio news playlists. We should get the AM Quickie on that, Brendan. Will you put a note? It's your own personally tailored radio station for news. News Voice, next generation news aggregator, social media platform that values transparency, good journalism, and productive political discussions. You can get totally free access by going to newsvoice.com/majority. Put a link underneath the video. If you're watching on YouTube, we have it in the podcast description, of course. And lastly, today's support for today's show also comes from MOVA Globes. I love these things. I really do. MOVA Globes turns on all their own. We got Christmas coming up. We got Hanukkah coming up. They can do so with or without a base. This could just sit right on my desk. I have an acrylic base over there. In any setting with any type of ambient lighting, there's no batteries are needed, no sloppy cords. Instead, hidden magnets. They have over 40 different designs. I got 2 right here on my desk. We keep these babies here all the time now because I'm in love with these things. Look at this. Look at this. Somebody's going to cut this for a GIF.
Someone's going to cut this for a trope.
I would hope. With over 40 different designs, including world maps, outer space, famous artworks, there's something for everybody. The Outer Space Collection has graphics that are provided by NASA and JPL. JPL, we had figured that out what that was before. It's like some type of space
It's
stuff.
the NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory.
Yeah, wow, okay. And complete with planets, moons, asteroid, constellation designs. It's a great gift for the person who has everything, or it's a great gift for people who don't have everything. Pair it with your home decor as a conversation piece. You can use it as a way of getting your kids to be excited about things like geography and space. They've got my next globe is going to be the 1791, which has the voyages of Captain James Cook. I read a big book about him going to Australia, I think, now that I think about it. I can't remember what the name of it was. I mean, I read it years ago, but in the 1790, no Antarctica. They hadn't discovered it. It's cool to watch and see how sort of people's cartography evolved. Plus, they got globes like this where you can look at the Earth from as if you were from outer space. They've got one of Mars, Uranus, which of course my son is very excited about. They've got Van Gogh and Monet artwork that is they put on the globes. 40 different versions. Go check it out. It's pretty amazing. Go to movaglobes.com/majority. Use the code majority, get 10% off your purchase. That's MOVA, MOVA, globes.com/majority. Use the code majority for 10% off your purchase. Really cool gift. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be talking to Emma Vigland. We're going to talk about 2020. We're going to figure out why Deval Patrick is in the race. We're going to figure out what the heck Mike Bloomberg thinks he's doing. And we're going to talk a little bit about impeachment and the left and who knows what else. Quick break. Be right back after this. Sam Seder on the Majority Report on the phone. It is a pleasure to welcome back to the program the TYT correspondent. I think there may be one or two, a couple others, but
I'm the most important one.
But the most important TYT correspondent, Emma Vigland. Emma, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So let's just start with this. My understanding is that Cenk Uygur is running for Katie Hill's seat the seat formerly occupied by Katie Hill in a special election in California. I can't remember what district it is. Can we get your comment? Are you 25th district? Are you how upset about this are you?
No, you know what? I'm just thrilled for him. Cenk is really I love working for Cenk because he's just one of the most principled guys I know. He's a great boss, so if he wins, obviously I'll be sad to see him go. But he's built something great here at TYT where we can all carry the mantle, and I'm just super proud that he's taking this next step and trying to make a change, because he would be an unbelievable congressman. Can you imagine him just facing off against Jim Jordan in Congress? It would be a sight to behold. Yeah,
I would pay good money for that. I mean, I very well may actually. He is raised apparently in less than 36 hours. In the first 24 hours, my understanding, he's raised $100,000.
Yeah, I haven't checked, but I would not be surprised. He really has the ability to bring the progressive community together. We all may disagree on like some aspects of, he's disagreed with different progressives on Russiagate, as they call it, all of those things. But when it comes to core progressive values, there's no one like Cenk who can carry that mantle.
Yeah, that would be it would be pretty fun to see him in Congress, I have to say.
That's an understatement. Yeah,
yes,
it really
is actually an understatement. But all right, well let's broaden out and big news obviously today. Roger Stone convicted now. I don't think he's going to get a pardon from Donald Trump. That would be a little bit awkward this far out. I would imagine that's not going to come until after November of 2020. So Stone's going to spend a little bit of time in prison, and would be my guess. I mean, I guess maybe they can appeal, but we'll see.
It's likely prison time, according to the reporting on this. I mean, it's 7 separate counts, so there's got to be some sort of prison time involved.
It didn't seem like the jury needed too much time either. I think in one day's worth of deliberations, he was done on all 7. And
well, they just took a look at his suits and said, this guy, there's no one who hasn't committed a crime who chooses this to dress like this.
There you go.
As opposed to, unless you're like a 1980s pimp in some sort of historical movie.
I got to think somewhere right now, Elliot Spitzer is probably got a smile on his face about this. People would have to go back and read into Elliot Spitzer, former governor of New York's travails. Stone took credit for basically blowing the whistle on Elliot Spitzer's use of prostitutes. But leaving that aside.
Certainly.
And impeachment is ongoing. Apparently 14 million people watched it the other day. I suspect by next week we're going to see people, we're going to see like 18, 19 million people watching some of the hearings contemporaneously. Without getting into the weeds of the actual impeachment, give me your sense of the political implications of it going forward. Now, and just to be clear, you've been going around, you've been hitting the campaign trail a decent amount, haven't you?
Yeah, a decent amount. Less so in the past few weeks. I've kind of had a slow few weeks, but I've been doing a lot of, I went to New Hampshire, I went to a different candidate town halls. I've been speaking to different supporters. At least among the base, the Democratic base, impeachment is at the top of people's lists of priorities, and that has only expanded because of the, it sounds like an oxymoron, but leadership of Nancy Pelosi to push this forward. That's really how you get these topics into the voters' consciousnesses, collective consciousness, is by leading and pushing forward your narrative, and fortunately she was pressured into doing so.
Oh, so from your experience on the campaign trail, this was a big priority for people?
Yeah, I from talking to Democratic voters, say at when I go to a Beto O'Rourke town hall, if I talk to them not just about he's not in the race anymore, but if I was talking to them, not just about his candidacy, it was always just, we got to impeach this guy, we got to get this guy out. That was a pretty resounding calling card for all of the Democratic constituencies when I was speaking to them.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that, because there's that story about that guy Van Drew in New Jersey, who was one of the 2 Democrats who voted against moving forward with impeachment proceedings, and apparently his the rating on his race has started to move towards Republicans after that vote. I don't know what the connection is there, but
well, it's almost like when you have to make your own case, and conceding that the president, who is in the opposition party, has not committed a crime, or you're not going to pursue the ramifications of that crime, that makes you look weak, and weakness never sells in any race.
It's interesting. And let's just talk a little bit about the timing here, and the way they're approaching this overall. I mean, there's obviously some of the there's controversy, and I'm not even sure where I land on this anymore. But there's multiple options on way that you handle this. You do the Ukraine thing, and then you move on to Turkey, or you do the Ukraine thing, and you move on to the IRS whistleblower, who Richard Neal apparently has just basically buried in someone's basement, I guess. You move on to emoluments, or you move on to obstruction, or, and on. Or you just say, we're just going to do the Ukraine thing and send that to the Senate. Give me your take on that. And we should also just mention something that, we've been talking about here for a while, which is if the timing is such that it goes to the Senate in January or February, you are taking two of the leading candidates for the Democratic primary. And there's a new poll out today that shows that Michael Bloomberg's eating into Joe Biden's lead, and Bernie Sanders is now tied for first, or I think in first, more or less tied based on the margin of error nationally amongst Democrats. But you're taking Sanders and Warren basically off of the playing field in Iowa, because they're going to have to be in the Senate every day if there's these trials. Just give me your overall, I guess, your omni perspective on this.
So yeah, there was a lot there. I guess I'll just address the last thing about Sanders and Warren and the candidates that don't really matter, like Harris and Klobuchar being taken off the campaign trail potentially for two months, around that, for a trial in the Senate. There's no doubt in my mind that it will hurt both Sanders and Warren, and that's a terrifying thought, because we see someone like Buttigieg surging in Iowa, and he's arguably the most dangerous of them all. And, it gives someone like Buttigieg an opportunity to talk about his, put his voice out there and make his case independent of Donald Trump, where when you have Warren and Sanders stuck in the Senate talking about Trump all the time, that's the trap that the right wants the left to fall into, in a sense. Because if you don't make your own case, and you're just talking about how Trump is bad, we all saw what happened in 2016. Now, I think it hurts Warren more than Bernie Sanders. I was putting the answers than Bernie Sanders. That was bizarre.
Right. Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, right, exactly. Because he has a stronger organizing base that's, number one, an infrastructure that's been put in place since 2016, and secondly, just because of the emphasis that his campaign has put on grassroots organizing, and not that she hasn't, but the extent of his reach is just further in that regard.
That's interesting. I mean, can you give me an assessment? Have you been around enough to give me an assessment of what the organizations look like in the various states, in the first several, primary states?
I couldn't give you like a full assessment there, because I don't really have one specific beat, and we'll just go and cover whatever candidate is interesting, and it's hard for me to be that embedded. But just really from what I've learned and what I've seen anecdotally, that's my assessment of the strength of the organizing of Sanders' campaign.
What about in Iowa? Can you rate the various groups? I'm curious, because I know Buttigieg seems to have
I've yet to go to Iowa.
Okay,
bizarrely, yes. But yeah.
All right, and so with that said, what do you think is going on?
Siren.
Yeah, that's okay. What do you think is going on with Deval, Patrick? I mean, I understand why Bloomberg got into the race, because he's surrounded by people who are probably making a lot of money and stand to make more money if he jumps into the presidential race. And, what Bloomberg could do whatever he wants, and nothing's gonna cost him anything, right?
Right.
And there are people, saying to him like, look at Mayor Pete. You're Mayor Mike. You're a million times better than him in everything, and you have the same politics, and he's doing well.
Right.
You should jump in the race. And he goes, oh, well, thank you. I will. And that's it. But what about Deval Patrick? That just mystifies me. I have a theory, but I'm curious as to what your perspective is.
So there was a great piece in the New Republic that was out yesterday. I'd encourage everyone to read it just because it kind of aggregates all of the different notable, terrible things about Deval Patrick's record. But it also makes note and includes aspects of this Politico piece that was out now that he's announced that says from sources close to Deval Patrick himself that this is coming from Wall Street. I mean, that's almost a direct quote. I don't have the article in front of me, but and they explain this is a direct response to Wall Street anxiety about Warren. Now, they don't mention Bernie Sanders because they don't think he's a legitimate threat to actually win the nomination, and he's just, the dismissal is embedded in any conversation that's people are having, the elites are having about Bernie Sanders. But that's really the admission, is that he is, they're basically seeing that Biden is faltering. Buttigieg, I don't think people think he has a legitimate shot, although again, his surge in Iowa is troubling. But I think that they are scrambling to try to find an alternative that they think is palatable that can represent Wall Street and the establishment's interests. And, Mike Bloomberg might have been a little too on the nose by being just a straight up billionaire with zero charisma, and who just proudly locked up black people and encouraged stop and frisk and helped gentrify New York City and was a literal Republican. That might have been a little too on the nose for the subterfuge that the donor class wanted to push through. So they're going with Deval Patrick, who, by the way, as governor, had the equivalent of a supermajority with both chambers being blue, and did nothing except basically institute Mitt Romney's healthcare plan, the state version of Obamacare, and didn't expand upon it at all. Raised the state sales tax, which disproportionately hurts poor people. And he also legalized casino gambling and blech.
Right.
What else? So we talked about what Obama did when he had a supermajority for those 2 years from 2008 to 2010, and how little he did there. Deval Patrick did even less, and he had it his entire tenure.
Yeah, and we should say that had he jumped into the race, let's say, I don't know, a year ago or 8 months ago or something like that, he would have had a lot of support from the sort of the Obama wing of the party. I mean, he was very popular. Now a lot of those people have signed up on other campaigns. A lot of donors are committed to other people. I just find it hard to buy that, that they think he's going to jump into the race at this late date, overcome Biden, overcome Buttigieg, and then have enough strength to be to me, this is what it sounds like a little bit to me, right? Is Fred Thompson stayed in the race in 2008, I think it was, in the Republican primary, essentially to help John McCain in South Carolina by making sure that no one ran away with South Carolina from McCain. McCain wasn't going to win it, but they wanted to make sure that nobody else, I can't remember who the candidates who were better suited for South Carolina. And he was basically a stalking horse. It seems to me that if I am worried about Joe Biden's candidacy, I am worried that he's going to get slaughtered in Iowa and slaughtered in New Hampshire. That if he comes in, that if Warren or Bernie or both of them beat Biden by 5 or 10 points, right? If he comes in and he only gets 12% in New Hampshire, and maybe Buttigieg comes in third, that's going to send a very, very strong signal that Joe Biden is not as electable as people think, and that's going to hurt him in South Carolina, and then so on and so on. But Deval Patrick, he goes up to New Hampshire, he's automatically going to get 10% of the vote, it seems to me, particularly with the types of people who are in southern New Hampshire who are there, sort of like more oriented towards that. And I think he's jumping in the race just to make sure that the gap between Joe Biden and probably Warren from their perspective, but I think they're sleeping a little bit on Bernie, is just not so large to mitigate the perspective on Biden's loss. Other than that, it doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, you worked out, you walked through that article. That it's like, could they be that stupid? Like that somehow Deval Patrick can jump in at this late date and do anything except for ruin Biden's campaign if he was to run throughout?
I think I like your theory, but I think that there's an underestimation of the role of sycophants in these wealthy people's inner circles. Deval Patrick has been floated by a lot of people in establishment arenas as a viable candidate for a very long time. And they have really internalized that neither Sanders nor Warren can defeat Donald Trump because they're too far to the left. And it's convenient for them to feel that way because then they can continue to do politics as usual and take donor money. But Deval Patrick probably sees, Biden's weekend, he's not going to win. Buttigieg, people don't think he has a realistic chance to win because he has 0 black people that support him. So Deval Patrick thinks I'm the alternative. I'm the one that can win. And that's, you can pay a lot of consultants to tell you that. And speaking, I thought that was a really good point about New Hampshire because people who don't follow politics a lot, I think, underestimate the close-knit political Democratic establishment of Massachusetts. So, when Elizabeth Warren floats Deval Patrick as someone who would be in her administration, which was ludicrous, a lot of this is, it's almost like New York in a certain way, but a little more progressive. That it's very tight-knit. There's a lot of machinations in the Massachusetts Democratic circles, and people in New Hampshire, take it seriously and know those names. So not only will, I think, Deval Patrick hurt Joe Biden in New Hampshire, but I think he will hurt Elizabeth Warren.
Yep.
Not for ideological reasons, but because of the power of that Massachusetts Democratic machine.
Yeah, I mean, I get. I mean, that's my point. It's like, I think he probably cuts into Warren more than he cuts into Biden, and and I think the idea being, I mean, he may cut into Biden a little bit in New Hampshire, but I suspect he cuts into Warren more, and that's going to, it's not going to swing it to anybody, but it's gonna keep the race flat as opposed to like make it look like Biden lost big, right? Like Biden's 10 points. If there are 3 other people who get 12 points or 15 points, looks a lot better than if 2 of the people get 20 points. And he's that far out of it. I mean, that's my theory. And then I guess the other thing is that if Deval Patrick becomes, a significant player in this, if he's able in some way to aggregate, some of these votes across the spectrum, it makes a brokered convention that much more possible. And, maybe you throw your hat in the ring thinking like, maybe I'll be the one that they choose.
Yeah. I think you're right there. I mean, the idea of a brokered convention is so terrifying that I don't even want to imagine it, to be honest with you.
I think things are about to get a lot more complicated as we go forward, but I guess we will see. And I don't know if we've left anything on the table here. I mean, anything that you think we should be thinking about going into these hearings next week and the debate that's going to happen on Wednesday night? I mean, do you have any sense of what's going to happen with this debate? We won't see Deval Patrick. We won't see
Yeah.
Bloomberg. I mean, it's like we're going to see. This is the first time that Buttigieg is going to come in there with some swagger, right? I mean, this is going to be the closest he's going to been to the center of the dais. Do you think people are going to go after him?
Yeah, I mean, weirdly, I don't know if they will go out after him, but you're saying like, oh, this is going to be the first time he has some swagger. He's had some unearned swagger for quite a long time. I mean, I do think he's a threat. I think, what is so frustrating when I'm talking about him to, friends and family, it's just, oh, he's so smart, but what is he saying? Nothing. So you can say big words. He's not saying anything at all. And I think, I've talked about this before a little, just this fetishization of intelligence without like really any of the substance that's necessary for intelligence that occurs on the left, or really not the left, but Democratic voters. That's the entire thing that's buoying Buttigieg's campaign. And just another point on him. I mean, it takes a specific kind of arrogance to run for president, being mayor of a small college town. I mean, he did it. He ran for DNC chair. Now he's doing it now. And he really thinks he's the top dog, and it's going to be between him and Warren, as he said on that Showtime show.
Well, I guess it remains to be seen. He's very smart. He speaks a lot of different languages.
Tulsi Gabbard's still making the cut. I mean, what was that? She was polling at 6% in New Hampshire. Goes to show that fighting with Hillary Clinton, her input and her fall from grace in the Democratic Party is as follows. Her fighting with someone gives them a polling bump more than her endorsing or speaking positively about them.
Yes.
So Tulsi Gabbard is now riding the wave of fighting with Hillary Clinton.
To be fair, if you look into that, it is New Hampshire is one of those crossover states where independents and Republicans can vote in the Democratic primary. And so much of her support, I think, actually comes from non-Democrats, which is,
right.
Those are the rules, and that's good. But I'm not surprised that. What did you think that was about? I mean, I was just about to say goodbye, but I still can't figure out, like, is Hillary Clinton that just sort of, I mean, I'd like to think that when people like Hillary Clinton, who were politicians for years and a top diplomat, right, that, she was the head of the State Department, for God's sakes, that when they go and they make public announcements like that, or pronouncements, that they have an agenda and that they've thought this thing through, and they think if I say this, X, Y, or Z is going to happen. What did she think was going to happen? Do you think that she did? I mean, why did you think she did that? Do you think she just did it because she hates Tulsi Gabbard?
I think the whole Democratic establishment hates Tulsi Gabbard. That doesn't mean that Tulsi Gabbard is a progressive or a good candidate by any stretch, but what's frustrating is just as the legitimate criticisms of Tulsi Gabbard were breaking through, waffling on Medicare for all, her connections with far-right leaders, her excuses of Gujarat, her countless just weird concessions to the right, just as those were breaking through, Hillary Clinton has to come through with this BS about her being a Russian asset, and then that galvanizes everyone to think that maybe all criticism of of Tulsi Gabbard is as ridiculous as Hillary's. But when it comes to what she was trying to do there, I think people in the establishment do like to kind of poo-poo her. I mean, we saw with Kamala Harris saying she was a top-tier candidate after Gabbard went after her, and now they're basically, very close in polling. And then we're seeing it with Hillary Clinton as well. So it's frustrating because I feel like as a progressive, I'm caught in the middle there, where I'm grossed out by the establishment attacks on her, But
you don't want to be put in a position to defend things that you don't think are
I
defendable.
certainly do not want to defend Tulsi Gabbard, and I often deliberately antagonize her supporters on Twitter.
Where do you think the support that she's getting in New Hampshire, at whose expense do you think that came from?
I don't know. I mean, your point about independents and Republicans being able to vote makes sense. I don't know what her voter base within the Democratic electorate is, except for disaffected Democratic voters who are upset with the establishment. But that's all Bernie voters.
Exactly. That to me is the only rational explanation for what she thought that she was doing. If she actually had an agenda, I think it was her way. I think that in her mind, if I pick a fight with Tulsi Gabbard, it's going to hurt. It's going to shave off a couple of points off of Bernie. That's what I mean, I don't know if that was the case, but that to me seems like the most rational explanation for why she did that. It's either she had no idea what she was doing, or that's what she thought she was doing. But who knows?
But she's also able to throw bombs without stakes these days, and Tulsi Gabbard doesn't have any defenders.
Well, that's true, but if Hillary Clinton has an agenda that is beyond a resentment of Trump, understandable, it would also be a resentment of Bernie Sanders. And if she was to if she wanted to feel like she was playing a role, that would be the role. And I'm not convinced that Deval Patrick's not the guy who's doing that same thing with Warren. Like, I think the people have been, I don't think it's that nefarious. People want to support their policy agendas and want it reflected in our government, even if they're not in their government. Certainly Hillary Clinton feels no less of a stake in this than you or I, right?
Right.
And so if I get up here and I talk about Pete Buttigieg, I'm doing so because I hope I'm convincing a couple of people not to vote for Pete Buttigieg. I would imagine she operates under a similar agenda, but of course has far more power and is probably a lot more savvy about these things. But who knows?
I don't know if she's more savvy than you, Sam. I think that's too high of a bar for her. Well,
Emma, I'm going to take that as a compliment, and that is the perfect way to end this segment. Emma, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Folks can follow you on Emma Vigland on Twitter. We'll put a link, obviously, in the podcast description. Thanks so much, Emma. Always a pleasure.
Yep. Thanks so much, Sam.
Bye-bye. Take a quick break, and I think if we're lucky, we're going to be able to wish somebody a something. I don't want to give it away, but we'll be right back with Judy Gold. Ladies and gentlemen, the Majority Report, thank you for being with us. I'm Sam Seder. Ladies and gentlemen, Fridays are great because we have the opportunity to play little songs that we're all stuck in our heads, and we finally get to play those songs. But this time, we're going to play two songs. Here is song number one. Level-headed.
Fuck you!
Calm, cool, and collected.
I have a bigger penis than him.
Judy Gold is on the line to keep us all connected.
What the fuck is the matter with him?
A steady hand to guide us. She'll keep us calm and carry on.
No fucking way!
Too bad Jimmy Reefer Cook didn't find her worthy of a song. Well, Judy Gold.
And he's such a fucking penis head liar. I'm not kidding. That's the president of the United States. That's the president. What the fuck? Like this guy, he's...
Okay, that's the song. Sometimes I get confused. But Judy Gold, are you on the phone?
I am. Thank you so much for having me.
Judy,
thank you.
I promised the folks 2 songs today, and here is the second one.
Oh, thank you.
It's that day that comes just once a year. We are happy that you are still here. If you think you're getting old, well, honey, let the truth be told. You only have eternity to go. You made it one more time around the sun.
What song is this?
Now's the time.
What is it?
It's hard to find a public domain happy birthday song.
It's hard to find a public domain happy birthday song. Happy birthday, Judy.
Thank you. You know, I can't think of...
Hold on, I'm giving you the shofar. Giving you a shofar. All right. Judy.
Yeah. What the fuck song was that?
I don't know. I said to Matt, get a happy birthday song, but make it one that we're not going to get completely.
Wait, do you have to pay for happy birthday?
Yeah. Not only do we get demonetized probably if we did.
Do we have to pay if we just sing it
that's
ourselves?
So stupid.
Actually, it recently entered the public domain, but the problem I was having is when you search for public domain happy birthday recording, it's all news stories about that and not versions of it. So
we should put out.
Oh, really?
we could record our own.
We
Maybe
should
if
record
you
our
started
own.
like more than 5 minutes before he asked you, then perhaps you would have found it.
You know what? I think first of all, I asked like 3 or 4 days ago. I was like, get on this.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. But you know how it works around here. Things are a little slow.
Let me see. I'm Googling happy birthday song.
We're gonna.
Wow! It just came up. Let's see.
We're gonna record one. We're gonna record one. We're gonna put it on
here
YouTube.
we go.
We'll see about that.
Oh wow!
Judy.
Wow, that was so hard. Oh my God, took me so long. I'm so glad I found that.
Judy.
Oh God, thank God. Yeah.
Now, I just want to tell people that I got a text from you.
Yeah.
At let's see, it was 1 a.m.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1 a.m. What day was it? I don't know. The other day.
I don't know. Yeah.
I cannot. This is what she wrote. I cannot take much more.
Yes. 12:57 a.m.
I feel like everybody feels that to a certain extent.
I just like how much more? Like seriously, how much more do we have to put up with? Okay, they could have a video of him like taking a shit on the bed in Russia, right? On Obama's headshot. Okay?
Not illegal.
And
Not
still,
illegal. Not illegal.
So, right. Still, it would be like he did not. That was not shit that was coming out. That was not shit. That was
exactly.
It's like
I had a suppository. I had a suppository in there, and that's what it was.
Right. I honestly. Like, it is, like, you look at Maria Yovanovitch, that was my birthday present, by the way. Like, look at these people. They have given up their lives to be public servants, to defend our democracy around the world. And this fucking dumb shit reality show, fucking horrible hair, lying piece of crap with a Drek sons and Drek daughter and just fucking scum, just a scumbag.
Yeah.
Is being defended by people who they know he's full of shit. I mean, it's just like, come on. How much more of this is, like, what the fuck? I can't, I'm really getting near the end of my rope. How much more do you want? It's a witch hunt. It's fake. Oh, you're just trying to get out. You're out to get him. he's best friends with Erdogan and fucking Putin. Like, what the fuck do you want? Like, are you fucking crazy? And there's no climate change? Oh my God. I was on my bike on Monday. I was on my bike in a fucking, like a light jacket. Okay, Monday. Tuesday, Canada Goose. What the fuck?
I feel you on that one, Judy. I never know what to wear to ride my bike to work these days.
Yeah, I'm just saying there's climate change. They're horrible people. They're horrible people. Can we just all agree that I don't care if you're a Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, Socialist, I don't care what the fuck you are. They are horrible people and should not be running this country.
I mean, I think there's a lot of us who agree with that. I think it's going to be even more difficult to watch the Republicans, assuming Donald Trump loses, which is, I don't know that it's a safe assumption, but assuming he loses.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
Watching the Republicans pretend like they never knew him, or watching the mainstream media pretend like the Republicans had nothing to do with Donald Trump. That's going to be the part that's going to drive me nuts. If fortunately we get there.
Lying, yeah.
Or we'll get someone even worse, and Trump will be rehabilitated in the same manner that they're now rehabilitating W.
Right. When we talk about Tom Cotton, when we talk about how horrible Tom Cotton is, everybody's going to be going, God, I wish we had Donald Trump. He was horrible, but at least he was stupid.
Right. Here's the deal. Okay. Here's the deal.
Yeah.
If I go to, I'm a comic. I don't know if you knew that.
I did. I was aware of that. Yes.
I sit at the cellar, and I can't tell you how many comments were, well, he's going to win again.
At the Comedy Cellar. The Comedy Cellar. We should tell people this is down in the village.
We're all miserable people anyway, but then that just takes it to another level. Well, he's going to win it. There's 4 more years. There's no fucking way. If there's 4 more years, I don't know what I'm going to fucking do. I swear to God. Like, there's no way. He's a fucking liar. They're all liars. And Don Jr. going on The View with his fucking bodyguard, Kimberly Guilfoyle. The fuck is that? And planting people in the audience so they'll clap. They're just so corrupt. They know nothing about how the government works. They're scum. He's a failed businessman. Oh, that's what businessmen they want to pay up before. Shut the fuck up. He hasn't paid anyone. He owes people so much fucking money. I shove a stump of fucking Trump steak up his fucking ass. I fucking hate him. Okay, sorry. I'm sorry. I'm getting a little. You watch these hearings, and Jim fucking Jordan, put on a goddamn jacket, you fucking asshole, with your fucking shirt and tie in the fucking shower where someone's jerking off, and that's what he does. Fuck you.
Oh boy.
Hello?
Yeah. No.
It's bad. It's bad today. It's bad today.
What did you think about what did you think? I assume you watched the Bill Taylor Kent hearings. I know you're watching Yovanovitch this morning. What did you think?
Yes. I think that to watch these people who are such patriots and so articulate and so knowledgeable and honest and well-meaning get questioned by fucking Devin Mullet Nunes and fucking Jim Jerkoff in the fucking shower Jordan.
Oh, Jim Jerkoff. We missed that.
Yeah, Jim Jerkoff. Yeah, Jim Jerkoff Jordan. And who's the council guy with the eyes that are really close together? It's like,
Castor?
The Republican.
Castor.
Yeah, right. Castor oil. I can't. It's like, what are you doing? Like, these people, you're obviously such scumbags. And these people are so obviously like the nerdy, I have only good intentions. I mean, look at Bill Kent. I mean, how can you disparage these people? Like, they were patriots up until this motherfucker. All of a sudden, they're the enemy. What's the common denominator? Fucking Trump. That's the common denominator. And they were fine. No one did anything wrong until that fucking piece of shit came into office. All of a sudden, they're the enemy.
Are you?
It's unbelievable. Yeah, go ahead.
Now, you tour around, right, and do comedy.
Yes.
Now, we've been talking for years through the Trump administration, prior to that, but certainly through the Trump administration. As you go around, is there a difference? Do you notice a difference? Or have you changed your habits in terms of where you'll play because of Trump? Or
no, he's not gonna. He already affects my life. In the most stressful manner, because I can't believe that someone could fucking get away with this shit. But I'm sure I don't get. I've been canceled twice. I'm sure because of definitely because of Trump supporters.
Where was it? Where were you canceled?
Huntington, Long Island Jewish Center. Huntington Jewish Center.
Yeah,
Huntington, Long Island.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Because apparently, you can't laugh if, or you can't separate the person's party from their jokes. So if the jokes were funny 3 years ago, I was funny 3 years ago before Trump was president, but now I'm not funny anymore. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. Now,
it has never been like this. It has never been. There's never been a president that you could not make fun of. There was never a president that was in office and comics didn't get work because this one was the Booker was a Republican. It's never happened before this lying piece of shit.
Now,
won because of the Russians. Yeah, it's just never happened before. It is, and he has no sense of humor. So because you would actually have to have some self-awareness and intelligence to have a sense of humor. So he doesn't have that, and neither do his, supporter. A lot of his supporters, but there are some supporters who do, who are like, you know what, Judy, I love you anyway, but they're few and far between.
Well, I think now that you mentioned that, I think I read an article where Jerry Seinfeld was very upset about that you got canceled because of your politics, and that there was a lot of online strum and drang about. Oh, wait a second. No, I'm sorry, that was not it. It was just that college kids didn't like his
right.
His gay kid.
Yeah, he wouldn't defend me. Are you
I know.
crazy?
I'm joking. I guess I was making a point.
Funny.
I was making a little bit of a point about.
That was nice.
We only hear that type of stuff when it's like people don't laugh at my jokes at a college campus, as opposed to like, oh, I got canceled because of my politics.
Right.
Which look.
Meanwhile,
I don't think, to be honest with you, like It sucks. I hopefully you had a kill fee, but I don't have a problem, canceling, booking comedians, finding out that like, oh, my audience that I'm catering to, I run the, whatever it is, the Worcester JCC.
Right.
They're going to have a problem with it.
But I'm not.
Right.
But it doesn't matter if you run the Worcester JCC. I'm not going to do Trump jokes at the Worcester JCC.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Everybody listens to the Majority Report, and they hear you trashing Trump.
Right, that's true. I'm telling you, you know what? Your listenership is through the roof. And it has had an effect on my career, and I'm happy about it. I mean, I am filling rooms, and it's always like, I'm like, what, because I'm like, where'd you guys hear about me? Majority Report. It's every time. I can't walk down the street in New York. I can't even get on the subway. It's like, are you, wait. And then some people will be like, wait, I recognize that voice. Are you Judy Gold from the Majority Report? And I'm like, yeah. It's just.
No, I understand. How much that must happen. I mean, I seem to remember, Maybe it was on this show where someone said, Judy, you should perform 25 questions for a Jewish mother as part of some live, performance at like an off-Broadway place. And then what do I see yesterday?
Yes,
in
what happened.
On my Playbill subscription, I see Judy Gold to perform 25 questions for a Jewish mother as part of primary stages.
Well, yes, listen, Sam, this is what happened. Okay. First of all, it did run off Broadway for many years. And then, it's been about 14 years since.
Oh, okay.
Now, they had, primary stages had this theater and they had to cancel a show that they had put in. And they said, would you like to do one of your solo shows? And I said, actually, I'd like to do 25 questions. And now I'm doing it for 2 weeks, 25 questions for a Jewish mother at the Cherry Lane Theater. I think it's starting November 29th, but I'm not sure.
That's exciting.
Maybe December 1st. Yeah, it'll be fun.
I've seen the Cherry Lane Theater. I've been to things.
Have you?
Is that the one down in the Village?
Yes, it's in the Village. And hopefully you'll be coming to see this, unless you're too busy with the Majority Report.
Well, things are pretty hopping these days. I went to the Cherry Lane Theater.
But yes, go ahead.
And I saw a play by a guy I knew who was somebody from Worcester, not a playwright, but a wealthy guy who fancied himself a playwright. And I saw a play there, and it got reviewed by New York Magazine in one of the greatest lines in a review I've ever read, where the reviewer wrote, "Some things are so bad, they're good. This was worse."
No way.
Yes. It was pretty amazing play. But
was it horrible?
It was I think it was so bad that it was actually, almost good. But it was pretty bad.
Right.
I may come to that. I may if I'm around. Sure. The performances run 21st to the 23rd is my understanding. 29th to the 15th. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, maybe I'll be able to do it. What else is going on, Judy? So are you going to I assume you're going to watch the, what are you going to do for your birthday?
Well, I slept till like 10-ish. So that's present number one.
Right.
And then Elisa and I she just told me that Elisa told me I have to be ready to leave the house at like 6:30. So,
very nice.
Yeah. So that's all I know. And, that's it. She made me a shake this morning and some waffles and some coffee. And I'm still in my pajamas, actually. And I'm going to get ready and go back to my apartment. And, I like to go to the gym because they say happy birthday when you walk in because they can tell they say it's your it's your birthday.
Of course.
I'm just such a fucking baby. And by the way, no birthday fundraiser. No birthday fundraiser today.
What does that mean?
Because you know what? You know how everyone's doing the birthday fundraiser? Like you go online, it's like, for my birthday, I want to raise, $5,000 for my favorite charity.
Oh, okay.
You haven't seen this?
No.
Like it's like a birthday. So now when it's your birthday, you have to raise money for a fucking charity. It's on Facebook, but, I rarely go on. But let me just tell you something. No birthday the birthday fundraiser, I will announce the charity that I am raising $10,000 for today is Chase checking account number 120-456-7809. So I'll get that information. I mean, how do you function?
Me?
Knowing that these people are getting away with this shit every day. Like, I'm at the point where, when people are like, well, he did do the blah, blah. And it's like, no, I don't know. He needs to be out. Pence needs to be out. They're all fucking liars. Pompeo, he's a fucking lying piece of shit. Roger Stone is guilty on all 7 counts. Everyone associated with this motherfucker is a criminal. Every one of them.
It's true.
And he's witness tampering.
It's true. I don't know. Hope springs eternal. Go out there, go to Iowa, and get Bernie elected.
Okay. No. I'm not going to Iowa. Someone told me to go to a, whatchamacallit, a Trump rally. I'm not going to a Trump rally.
Oh boy, I would follow you around with.
They're like, oh, you should go to a Trump rally. I can't even. I think I might. Yeah, I don't know what I would do.
I think that would be worth watching. I would sponsor that.
Okay, I'll go for you. I'll go to the Trump rally.
Oh,
I'll interview people. I'll do whatever you want.
Oh my God, really?
Yes.
All right, we'll talk.
I will go to a Trump rally for you, and I'll try to be nice to them. I'll be like, what is his best characteristic? Like, I will ask questions about what they love about him.
Honestly, the only thing I can think of is that is Scanners. Remember that movie where Scanners? Was it a Cronenberg movie where you basically people's heads would explode because they were getting their heads scanned? I just literally think that it's possible that your head would explode. Like I can see you asking a question and listening there and just like containing yourself and all the energy just going right up to your head and it literally exploding.
Yeah. I would do that for you.
Wow. We're going to talk about this.
Yeah.
Judy, honestly, you're a national treasure, and I wish you the happiest of all birthdays.
Sam. And by the way, your appearances on MSNBC, you're excellent, and you're very handsome, as Elisa, my girlfriend, will say.
There you go.
But you're doing an excellent job, and you do have a very nice career, don't you think? You have the Majority Report. You're on MSNBC. You do, you're in these cartoons, like you voice. You're doing very well, and I think you should be very proud of yourself. And you're good looking.
That's a weird thing to sort of say to somebody. I feel pretty good about what's going on. Why?
I'm just saying you should.
Who's saying that I shouldn't?
You know what? You're just as pompous as they are, you fucking asshole.
Judy, thank you so much. I love you. We'll be in touch.
I love you. Get him out now before I fucking have a fucking... All right, thank you.
Bye. Judy Gold, ladies and gentlemen. Judy Gold. Can we play that Scanners thing? He just put it in the thing. Just do that, and then we'll go into the... Yeah, just play.
State Fair.
There you go. Folks, we're going to take a quick break and head into the fun half of the program. Yeah, we're going to do that. We're going to take a couple of your calls, probably take a couple of IMs. I don't know if we'll get to too many. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about today. It's pretty crazy. On Monday, we're going to have a regular show. On Tuesday, we're going to probably start pretty early. We're going to be streaming the hearings. That may be the show for Tuesday. I'm not sure yet. We got to figure this stuff out. Wednesday, we'll definitely be streaming the hearings, Sunderland, and then we will be doing the Democratic debate. And so, it's nutso around here in the YouTube political news space. A lot of stuff happening. And you can support our endeavors by becoming a member. JoinTheMajorityReport.com. JoinTheMajorityReport.com. There, you not only become a member of the program, you get the free show, you get it commercial free, and then we give you extra content virtually every day. I don't know if there's been a day that we don't do that. Maybe a holiday or two here or there. And it just costs pennies a day, and you can support this program. And also, if you cannot afford the fun half, but you want it, send us an email, majorityreporters@gmail.com. We will hook you up. Put in the subject line, help with membership. Help with membership. And we will get to you. You got to wait a little time because it takes us a little time to process these things. And it's your support that makes this show possible. Don't forget, sign up for the AM Quickie. When you sign up for the AM Quickie, an angel gets their wings. It's free, totally free. amquickie.com. You can subscribe. You get 5 minutes of political headline news every morning in your box, voiced by myself and Lucy Steiner. We switch off depending on when I have my kids. I don't know what she does when she's not doing it. She doesn't, maybe raising another family. I don't know. But, give us a review on iTunes. That would be very helpful. And you can also gift a membership at jointhemajorityreport.com. There's an opportunity to give people a membership there as well, I believe. So if you want to give one for the holidays. Speaking of gifts, justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code Majority, get 10% off. Buy the Majority Report blend. Follow us on Instagram, majorityreport.fm. All of these ways of staying in touch and being part of the show. Check out TMBS. It happened on Tuesday of this week. Patreon.com/TMBS, or its YouTube channel. Jamie, the Antifada.
This week on the Antifada, I speak with Tom, Terrence, and Tanya of the Trillbilly Workers Party, one of my favorite podcasts, about their media project, the recent election in Kentucky, and why they don't believe impeachment played a role, and how they became dyed-in-the-wool radicals as well as electoral skeptics. Believe me, folks, they came by it honestly. We also talk about jobs versus the environment, the pitfalls of the Just Transition program, and we get an update on Penny the Pony, which regular listeners of the Trillbilly Workers Party podcast are all very invested in what happens to Penny. Also, and that's free for everybody to listen to, and that's out now. Also, today, as a premium offering for our treasured patrons, I have just released a new episode of The Vampire Castle, wherein Leslie Lee III from Struggle Session and I talk not about social justice warriors, but about actual cool-ass vampires. In this edition, we talk about two very different but both very 80s vampire movies, Tony Scott's The Hunger from 1983 and Joel Schumacher's The Lost Boys, 1987. So trigger warning, I do talk about Jim Morrison a little bit as the ultimate symbol of a culture in decay, but I think you're all going to like it a lot. Patreon.com/theantifada.
Matt.
Up now for patrons, up for everybody. Tomorrow is Afra Ben. We talk about Afra Ben. She was the first British woman to earn her living by her pen. She was a spy for the monarchists in the Restoration, and we talk about, it's an interesting book on a royal slave, a guy who gets enslaved, but it's a problem not because he's a person, but because he's descended from royal lineage. So it's not exactly an anti-slavery book, but it's 1688, so what do you want, folks? But yeah, check that out. Everybody tomorrow.
Quick break, fun half. See you there. Left is best. Jamie and I may have a disagreement.
Yeah, you can't just say whatever you want about people just because you're rich.
I have an absolute right to mock them on YouTube.
He's up there buggy whipping like he's the boss.
I am not your employer.
You know, I'm tired of the negativity.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset you. You're nervous? You're a little bit upset? You're riled up?
Yeah, maybe you should rethink your defense of that, you fucking idiots.
We're just going to get rid of you.
All right.
But dude, you want to smoke this joint?
Yes.
Do you feel like you are a dinosaur?
That's some good shit.
Exactly. I'm happy now.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win.
Oh, hell yeah.
Now listen to me. 2, 3, 4, 5 times. 847-906-501-457. 2, 38, 56, 27. 1 half. 5 8s. 3.9 billion.
Wow.
He's the ultimate math nerd.
Don't you see?
Why don't you get a real job instead of spewing vitriol and hatred, you left-wing Limbaugh?
Everybody's taking their dumb juice today.
Come on, Sammy.
Dance, dance, dance.
Rand Paul.
I had my first post-coital scene with a woman. I'm hoping to add more moves to my repertoire. All I have is the dip and the swirl.
Fine, we can double dip.
Yes, this is a perfect moment.
No.
Wait, what?
You make under $1 million a year. You're scum. You're nothing.
Excuse me? Fuck you, you fucking liberal elite. I think you belong in jail.
Thank you for saying that, Sam. You're a horrible, despicable person.
All right, gonna take a quick break. I want to take a moment to talk to some of the libertarians out there. take whatever vehicle you want to drive to the library. What you're talking about is jibber jabber.
Classic. I'm feeling more chill already.
Donald Trump can kiss all of our asses.
Hey, Sam. Hey, Andy. You guys ready to do some evil?
Hitler was such an idiot.
That guy might be a Nazi.
Agreed.
No.
Death to America.
You. Yes.
Wow.
Wow, that's weird. No way! Unbelievable. This guy's got a really good hook. Throw our hands up. Ooh. Wow.
But Sam, I gotta get off.
No worries. Let's. I want to just flesh this out a little bit. I mean, look, it's a free speech issue. If you don't like me...
Hey, shut up!
Thank you for calling into the Majority Report. Sam will be with you shortly.
Oh, we should maybe pull up a copy of the Constitution. We're going to do this Laura Ingraham thing. Welcome to the fun half, ladies and gentlemen. The I don't know, is do we have an update? Is Yovanovitch still speaking? Let's see. She is still okay. So we will do a roundup of that a little bit, I guess, on Monday, and maybe Tuesday we'll also drop some in. We'll see. Let's see. Here we go. Okay. Let's go to Laura Ingraham. They are attempting now, the Republicans, as more and more testimony comes out, and it becomes clear that what Donald Trump is accused of, basically, call it extortion, you call it bribery, more or less the same thing. Extortion is forcing someone to do something by some form of coercion. Bribery is compelling someone to do something by giving them something that they want. And it becomes harder and harder for the Republicans to deny what happened. So what do? Well, you start to deny that what happened is even illegal in the first place. Okay, yeah, he offered him a bribe, but so what? That's not necessarily illegal. Or at the very least, like, it didn't work. You cannot convict somebody who goes in to rob a bank if they get caught in the middle of it and they don't get the money, right? Well, actually, that's wrong. That's called attempted bank robbery, which is also illegal. Here is Laura Ingraham, who surely knows this, but she comes armed with a graphic of the first three words of the Constitution, so maybe she's right.
Okay, here's the problem. Yeah, of course, Nancy, it's in the Constitution. We can read, okay? President may be impeached for bribery, treason, or high crimes and misdemeanors. But even assuming the Democrats' strained and ridiculous interpretation of the facts, and I do not assume them, but just for the sake of their argument, attempted bribery isn't in the Constitution. Remember, Ukraine got its military aid. It was 14 days delayed. Big deal. And remember, Ukraine never made any public statement about any investigation. And the fellow on the other end of the call, Zelensky, said he didn't feel pressured at all. He didn't even know aid was frozen to his country until weeks later. So the call, in his words, was normal. So it's another swing and a miss. But that's okay. That's okay, because Democrats think they're cats. They have 9 political lives when it comes to impeachment. So if the country's tuning them out, and they were tuning them out, well, it's only because their star witnesses lack a certain je ne sais quoi.
Oh, that was her way of saying there's no pizzazz. Can we get that all that jazz music in the background here so I can explain to Laura Ingraham that, well, first off, what she was saying, there was a lot of lies to it. One of them was that it was held up only for 14 days.
What's 14 days in military time?
Right, exactly. Who needs that when you're being attacked? Who needs that 14 days? I mean, honestly, like, it probably could have saved a couple of lives. The other thing is we know why this was released. The money was released ultimately. It's because the Democrats started an investigation that was supported by Republican senators at the time who were wondering what the hell's going on. We also know that according to Kent, the U.S. diplomat, who was asked in testimony the other day, would the Ukrainians lie about not knowing about it because they would be afraid to upset Donald Trump, who's still the United States president? Yes, they would. And I spoke to a Ukrainian reporter the other day who said the exact same thing to me. Like, of course, can't say anything. What are you going to do? These guys, they're desperate. They need help from the U.S. government. They can't go out there and in any way criticize Trump. Not at all. But nevertheless, make the point. You get arrested in the middle of a bank heist, even though you don't steal the money. Guess what? Still a crime. You fire your gun at someone trying to kill them. They don't realize you're doing it, but somebody else knows and says that person attempted murder. Guess what? Still a crime.
Hearsay.
And these things don't need to be proven in the same way that a crime does, because it's not a criminal proceeding. It is a political one that is called for in the Constitution. So how's that for some French? There you go. We tried to wrap that up in perfect all that jazz pizzazz to make it pizzazzy so that it's real. Because if it doesn't have that je ne sais quoi, then it can't be impeachment. That's what they say. If it doesn't have that je ne sais quoi, it cannot be the impeachment.
What else you got, kid?
Calling from a 206 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? 206.
Hi, this is Priya. I'm from Seattle.
Priya from Seattle. What's on your mind?
Well, two things. The first thing, I called last week, and I don't remember why, but I accidentally started typing the letters from or the numbers from your song, like from the intro song or whatever, like 18. I think you say 866, and then you start naming a bunch of numbers, and I did 866, and then I put the actual number in after that, and it got some weird like cruise ship scam or something.
Right, of course.
And so I don't know.
That's one of the ways that we finance the show.
Okay, so I just wanted to let you know. I don't know if it matters, but I don't think anyone's gonna make that same mistake. But it was just weird. But I was just calling because I don't know. I'm about this whole billionaires crying about people not liking them and all that stuff. And the whole thing that you always say about the zero sum game just really, I don't know. It just hit me really a lot recently, where it's just I don't. Billionaires shouldn't exist, obviously, but I just think of it as in terms of one of Betsy DeVos's yachts is basically for every one of her yachts, a child has died in custody this year, right? I don't know how many it is, but I know it's I thought it was 10, overall it was in the teens, but it was children was 10, and I don't remember how many yachts she has, but but basically someone's suffering, every time a billionaire makes another certain amount in interest, that money is not going to someone who needs it. And I'm sorry, but I don't give a fuck, I don't care if billionaires, we shouldn't like them. If they think their money in just adding zeros to their bank account is worth the same as a child going hungry or someone dying from a completely preventable, 30 to 45,000 people are dying from ridiculous things just from not having health care, and we care at all about the interest. They cannot spend that money in the time that they have to get it. And what exactly did they do? I don't care what how rich you are. What did you do that was so worth it that someone else can suffer the way that they do? You know, like, I don't think there's anything anybody in the history of the world has done like that can, like, you're not such a great person that it can justify the suffering. And the reality is that's what's happening, is the richer they get, the more people are suffering. And I just don't understand how they can have like that moral like indignation or the complete, you know, arrogance and megalomania and like all that just to have this entitlement. And then they act like people are entitled for wanting to live, you know, like, it's just, I don't know. And the other thing that you always talk about, that like the Supreme Court, just like, I honestly, like, I start feeling sick every time I think about it. And then when I also, because I wasn't like voting during the 2000 elections, but like they've stolen every election, right? I mean, they literally stole, like, we won. And I just don't understand how they keep acting like it's okay to completely just violate the Constitution, violate this, like, the system of government that we have. Like, the fact that they're systematically going across the country, like, disenfranchising people, taking away their votes, and we're just, and I understand that Trump's a big deal as well, but it's the whole party, and they're doing this, and they think that it's okay. Like, they're protecting people who are just, like, you know what I mean? Like, if the world would be a better place without some of these people, like, I'd rather not have them and have people who contribute or, you know, have the potential to contribute, you know? And I don't know. I'm sorry. I just...
Well, hang in there. Hang in there, Priya. I mean, I think it's probably more accurate to say the Supreme Court stole just the 2000 election. I don't think they got involved in latter ones, although one could argue that there is a sort of cascading effect to these things. But yeah, hang in there. Hang in there. You know, stranger things have happened. Who knows? The best thing to do is to channel that frustration into helping your favored candidate get elected. So I presume it's not going to be Trump. So I appreciate the call.
No, I am. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Bye-bye. Bye. Sorry about the getting you caught up in our cruise line scam, but that is just one of the ways we fund the show.
Yeah, the number in the MR Fun song is not an official phone number.
That is not the official phone number. That's a different number. Reminder, on Wednesday of next week, we will be covering the Gordon Sondland testimony in as much of its entirety as possible. And we certainly will start at the beginning. And we will go through the show if we need to do it. One of the big things that came out in Bill Taylor's testimony was that after he gave his private testimony, a staffer came to him, staffer who was working, I believe, at the consulate in Kiev, as they say, Kiev. One is the Ukraine way, one's the Russian way. As far as I can hear, people split the difference. And this staffer overheard a conversation between Sondland and Donald Trump on a non-secure cell phone. I know. People are probably freaking out about that because we know the implications of using non-secure communication devices. That was a huge issue in 2016. The non-secure cell phone that was undoubtedly, probably, almost impossibly not listened to, and I assume this is not the first. Just this one time am I going to use this unsecure cell phone. And the staffer overheard the conversation, overheard Trump asking about investigations, and then asked Sondland afterwards, like, what does Trump think about Ukraine? He doesn't think anything about Ukraine. He just wants the investigations. Apparently, there's a second staffer who's heard it. Now, why is it important that there are other people who were there who will testify, particularly two, who will testify that this conversation took place and Sondland said what he said, and Trump said what he said? Why is that important? Because Donald Trump sent a signal to Sondland the other day as to what he should say, and Sondland has a choice to make. Here's Donald Trump having a joint news conference with Erdogan from Turkey. Presumably they were talking about the Trump Tower that Trump will now be able to build in Istanbul or whatever it is. I'm making that up, but I'm assuming there's a pro quo in this quid as well with this quid. But here's Donald Trump talking about the phone call with Sondland. Two people now say that call happened. One person says something different. We'll find out what the last person says on Wednesday. But here is Donald Trump.
Thank you, Mr. President. I know that you didn't spend a lot of time glued to the TV today, but there was one moment where Ambassador Bill Taylor recounted a conversation that an aide of his overheard. It was the day after the phone call with Zelensky on July the 26th, in which the aide says that he overheard you say to Sondland, how are things going with proceeding with the investigations? Sondland repeated back to you, according to this aide, that Ukraine was prepared to do everything that you wanted it to do. Is that correct? And can you fill in some more?
I know nothing about that. First time I've heard it. The one thing I've seen that Sondland said was that he did speak to me for a brief moment, and I said no quid pro quo under any circumstances, and that's true. The other, I've never heard this. In any event, it's more secondhand information, but I've never heard it.
Do you recall having a conversation with Sondland?
I don't recall. No, not at all. Not even a little bit. The only thing, and I guess Sondland had stayed with his testimony, that there was no quid pro quo. Pure and simple. Yeah.
Yeah, that is actually, now, the no quid pro quo phone conversation that Trump is talking about happened in September. The one that these staffers are talking about happened in July 26th. Now, you do not need to be a professional or scheduler to know that a conversation that happens in the second week of September is not the same as a conversation that happens in the third week of July. That is, even an amateur can figure that out. Now, if you're Sondland, Donald Trump has said, like, that call never happened. The call never happened. I do know he's stuck with his no quid pro quo, but someone's going to get asked that question. And he could say that call never happened, or he could say that call did happen. Because he may end up, who knows, there may be two other witnesses who are just sitting to his left or right on that day who are going to testify that, yeah, I heard the call. I was right there. Hey, Gordon, it's me.
Hearsay.
We will cover that on Wednesday. It's going to be, that call goes to the question of, was this all about corruption generally? Did Donald Trump really have such a deep-seated concern about corruption, broadly speaking, in Ukraine that was keeping him up at night? Or was it really just what Ben Shapiro can't imagine? Did Donald Trump have this laser-like focus?
Laser focused on Burisma.
Donald Trump was just like, get me dirt on my, the most likely, from his perspective, Democratic nominee, at least from a numbers perspective. So we will see on Wednesday which way Sondland goes in that way. But what's Donald Trump going to say when Sondland says, yeah, that call happened? I remember, he's lying. No quid pro quo.
I think I said no quid pro quo in that one, too.
That's what I say on every call I get on. No quid pro quo. No quid pro quo. Remember, that's like 2 days after Mueller testified, I think. If I'm not mistaken. How is these impeachment hearings playing around the country? My assumption is that you're just not going to see much. It's not going to change much. But again, in terms of voters, I think it will impact the senatorial races because there are people who may not care about impeachment, but impeachment is going to be a surrogate for sticking up for Donald Trump. And ABC News talked to voters in Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina on their thoughts on the impeachment hearing. Here are some of those now.
At Trump Tower, some of the president's most ardent fans hate-watched the hearings in the lobby bar.
No, our president's working. This is not stopping what he's doing, and you see it every day.
Pause it now. We should say this is the Trump Tower bar. So this is like, I don't know, this is like going to a bar on on the old Yawkey Way. I can't remember what they've renamed it because Yawkey had a little bit of an issue. But right outside of Fenway Park, watching the game and going like, who are you rooting for? I'm rooting for the Red Sox, but good.
And we're not tired of winning, and we're still kicking their.
But out in the country, the polls show Americans split down the middle over impeachment. 49% say the president should be impeached and removed from office. The rest, not convinced. So we asked our intrepid campaign reporters to take the pulse among voters in 3 early primary states, Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina.
I'm Sam Sergi. I'm here in Des Moines, Iowa, and we are 82 days away from the Iowa caucuses.
Voter Stephanie Morrison told Sam she found the hearings unexpectedly informative.
I thought I had an opinion, an idea about the impeachment that it perhaps wasn't a great thing. Listening to the details from Ambassador Taylor is starting to change my mind a little bit with his details and such detailed notes.
I'm Chris Donato in Concord, New Hampshire, home of the First in the Nation primary.
In New Hampshire, Chris found that impeachment wasn't must-see TV.
Did you watch it at all?
I did not. I was out hunting today. It's the first day of deer season.
I think we would rather come to Sam's and Walmart than watch the impeachment hearings. I think it is such a political exercise on both sides of the issue.
I'm Brianna Stewart here in South Carolina. This state prides itself on being the first in the South.
Brianna, our reporter in South Carolina, got a mixed reaction today.
Everyone needs to be held accountable at the same level, you know. A normal person or the president. So I think that should be our top priority right now.
Do you care about this impeachment process?
Oh, absolutely, yes. I mean, it's the leader of our country getting impeached, and that doesn't happen often. I hope it doesn't happen.
We will never get the chance to see the whistleblower raise his right hand.
Today's hearing also touched on who hasn't been called to testify yet.
That's it. Now, look, there's really not much material you can glean from this that's material and substantive, except that this is the way the media is portraying it. So for people who have not paid attention to the impeachment and the only news they get, there is one story they're not going to get from that narrative, whether it's accurate or not. And that is that this impeachment is hurting the Democrats. And in terms of like analyzing the political implications of it, I think that is going to be, there is only upside for the Democrats in this context, even putting aside impeachment as a surrogate for support of Donald Trump. So we'll see.
The more I look at the numbers here, the more I think that it's just going to be a wash, because impeachment may be driving an increased turnout on both sides, right? Because the base of the Republican Party is still very much fans of Trump, and the base of the Democratic Party obviously hates Trump. But like, if it drives turnout on both sides, but it doesn't convince that many people who weren't that engaged before, like, doesn't it cancel itself out?
But not if not doing it depresses turnout.
That's right. And I think not doing it would have depressed turnout. And again, I think like the real electoral impact is going to be in purple states where there's a small number of people who don't want to vote for a Susan Collins who hugs Donald Trump. There's going to be a small number of people who just want Joni Ernst to be independent of Donald Trump, but that's going to be harder for her to do because of her vote that she's going to have to take in support of Donald Trump and protecting him. And I think a lot of these people don't want to be perceived as being protectors of Donald Trump. I would bet that it's going to be a wash in terms of what you're talking about. But it's also going to be preventing the Trump people from doing something else that would have been, I think, sort of problematic. Here is an image of Roger Stone. This is really disturbing stuff. When he's been going on InfoWars, he has been, this is another example of somebody stealing some version of the MR backdrop. There it is. He has constructed an entire grid that looks identical to mine.
It is the same one. You can definitely tell.
Well, I mean, he's constructed it to look like the same one.
Well, yeah, okay.
Because it's not like I bought this from type of popular furniture store
somehow
that anybody could get that backdrop and
he somehow recreated it meticulously.
Constructed it by myself with gels.
Well, you're missing the gels. No one can recreate the gels.
Nobody can. That is where we've, except for apparently Pac-Man.
He's only got one color gel, though.
Yeah, that's true. It's a good point. We're really kicking his ass on that accord. Calling from a 308 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Sam. It's Kowalski calling from the Senate-less state of Nebraska.
Kowalski calling from the Senate-less state of Nebraska? What do you mean Senate-less?
What? Or unicameral.
Ah, okay.
We don't have a Senate.
There you go. Now, Kowalski, give me your sense. How is impeachment playing out there? Is anybody paying attention to it? My guess is no.
Going to make Thanksgiving a living hell.
Well,
but not changing many minds. Probably giving more Democrats the motivation to stand up for themselves on social media. Used to be just Trump supporters could just overwhelm any type of discussion. Now it seems to be more of an equal playing field. I think that'll probably put Omaha at play for the Democrats, which should be interesting.
That is interesting.
Populists like Sanders might even be able to rip off Omaha from the electoral side of things.
Interesting. Nebraska. Oh, is Nebraska one of those states that does that splits it, right? Maine and Nebraska are. That's interesting.
Yep. If you win the majority in a district, you get the district vote, and if you win the majority of the state, you get the Senate votes. So
interesting. All right, that's good to know. What else is on your mind today?
Well, I was listening to you the other day, and you guys were talking about how you were kind of curious the thought process on like Bill Gates and other billionaires and their like obsession with sub-Saharan African birth rates. And I think I found it. So, from what most economic analysts are predicting, sub-Saharan Africa is probably going to be like the next China. Because in the next 50 years, they're expected to have about 3 billion people in the continent of Africa.
Wow.
Which should cause like one of the largest gravitational pulls of like economic activity, especially as the Indian Ocean starts bouncing back between Southeast Asia, a resurgent India, and Africa. So anybody who's got a really strong foothold in the policies in sub-Saharan Africa are basically setting up their family line for generations to come, or at least that appears to be what they're doing. Unlike China and India, there's no centralized state, so there's actually more for international companies to grab just because they can basically have Kenya fight their neighbors, have South Africa fight its neighbors, keep people fighting, but, you get to basically reward yourself off of all of that conflict because people are assholes. So,
indeed.
Yeah, so, yeah, that's what it looks like to me and a lot of analysts, why so many rich people are like focused on there. And I mean, if you really look at it, U.S. foreign policy has started to shift more towards Africa. Like, used to be just a big game between China and France on the African continent. Now we're starting to squeak in there. So
I feel like
interesting.
China's been putting a tremendous amount of investment in throughout Africa for 20 years, I feel like, at least.
Well, China, most people in China have recognized that they're sitting on a ticking time bomb as far as like, they've got about 10 years before their economy is going to slow down, just like hit a wall, just because they're going to be suffering a population shortage. Funny to hear, but yeah, the one-child policy really screwed them, because like one worker will have to support at least 2 to 3 adults and then at least 1 to 2 children. So it's the kind of strain that the Japanese went under in like the late 80s, early 90s. They never really recovered, but they never really declined.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to export your manufacturing base to whatever part of the world's going to grow. U.S. is lucky. We're still growing. we have, a lot of Latin influence, so we're going to be fine. But yeah, it's why a lot of, especially Europe, like Europe has to invest in Africa or they will decline. That's how the current market system works. So unless we radically change how economics works, it's just going to be the big countries right now picking on the small ones and hedging for the long run.
Interesting.
So there's a little sophistication to what they're doing, but basically it's colonialism 2.0. So probably should steer clear of it and just let the countries develop their own destinies.
Are we really on only 2.0? I thought by now we would be like on 3 or 4. But fair enough. Kowalski, how's the campaign going? And why don't you tell us your Twitter and campaign info?
I haven't launched that stuff quite yet. We basically got done with harvest last week, and I'm extremely busy right now. I just like listening to you guys in the background. I'm working on a semi right now, so I can get paid $50 an hour. But I'll contact you guys in 2 weeks. I've got a series of videos I'm working on because when I hit the campaign trail, it's just going to be a huge hit right off the bat and just keep the momentum going.
Now, are you you're in Omaha, right? Not in
No, I'm in the 3rd district. So that's everything outside of Lincoln and Omaha.
Okay.
If you ever looked at the electoral map of Nebraska, it's actually, it kind of looks like we've gerrymandered, but to be perfectly fair, I think they did a pretty good job because Omaha has kind of always been its own thing. The eastern portion of the state's a little bit different than the west, and then, we also don't have that many people, so you can only divide it 3 ways. But our system is actually fairly nice statewide, really hard for people to be political. You could not do what they've done in North Carolina here is basically what I'm getting at.
Right. In terms of splitting up the state in that way.
Yeah. Even at the state level, when they redo districts, it's in our constitution. I'm pretty sure you have to either go off county line. Then I think that you go down to city limits and then school district lines. So really hard for them to actually divide population groups to spread them out. Just doesn't really happen. So,
well, I know a farmer down near outside of Lincoln, Ross Broccoli. I don't know if you've ever run into that guy. It's been a long time, but you'd know it if you had. Kowalski, thanks for the call. Appreciate it.
All right. See you guys. Have a good one.
Bye-bye. Yeah, I just checked Broccoli Pharmaceuticals, and apparently he has not been posting for the past couple of years. Ross Broccoli, yeah. He was a comedian friend, and he went back to Nebraska, work on his farm. And people who listen to the old Majority Report may remember him coming on to the radio version and talking about how Dick Cheney was actually a changeling lizard. And then over time, Ross and I had a divergence of opinions about reality, and things got a little bit murky. We haven't been in touch as much. Calling from a 609 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, sir. This is Aaron DiDonato. Am I on your show right now?
You are, Aaron. Where are you calling from?
Excellent. Well, I'm calling from the Villas, New Jersey, sir. How are you doing?
I'm very well. What's on your mind?
Well, I'm really glad to be on your show, sir. Do you mind if I speak in the character of Darth Big Van Smoke because I'm part of East Coast Pro Wrestling?
No. Go ahead.
You don't mind if I do that? Just to clarify the language here?
I'm not. I got to be totally honest with you.
We already had Judy Gold on. So
yeah, we had Judy Gold on. I also am not completely.
So you prefer for me to be serious, is what you're saying, sir?
Sure. Why don't you be serious?
All right. Well, when I was in college, I went to Northampton Community College, and someone there got me involved with the Monroe County Democratic Committee. And the whole time I was in college, which, I purposefully took a while because I wasn't in a rush to take 5-6 classes at a time and be done in 4 years. The whole time I was in college, I was active with the MCDC. And also for a big chunk of that time, I did a show called Counterpoint PA that was only about politics, news in Pennsylvania, only from a progressive perspective, basically imitating, Amy Goodman and Keith Olbermann and Jank and guys like you.
Okay.
But I just did it in my basement, like for fun, like as a side project while I was in college. And when I was done, I made it all private when I graduated because I was like, this doesn't look that good. This doesn't look that professional. And it's kind of funny, so I didn't delete it. Like, I'm glad I did it.
Right.
It was a lot of work. And like for that whole time when I lived with my parents, right? So my college loans are like half what they otherwise would be because I didn't go away to a dorm and get a meal plan and all that shit.
Right.
So my parents would like go in the basement to do whatever. And half the basement would just be like my desk set up with this. I didn't bother buying an actual green screen, sir. Do you mind me explaining this? Am I wasting your radio time right now?
Well, I mean, I think maybe we need to maybe move a little bit closer to the point.
You want me to ask a question?
Sure.
I can just get to a question if you prefer.
Let's get to the question. But I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. You tried this out.
I'm really trying not to waste your time, sir. That's all.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. So yeah, let's get to the question.
Cool. So I appreciate being on your show. And real quick, before I get to my question, if anyone wants to look at hashtag worst Pennsylvanians of the week, that will be public again in about an hour or two. And I'll be tweeting it from @DarthBigVanSmoke, and that is smoke with a 0 and no E.
Okay.
All right. So here's my question. And this is like a legitimate question. I'm not like fucking around. Excuse my language.
I understand.
I would like to make a Twitter account that says sexy ladies of the squad, right? And just have pictures of the ladies in the squad looking sexy, which I don't think there's anything wrong with, and I don't think is misogynistic. But I would like to ask someone else if they agree that that is not sexist and not misogynistic before I actually do that. That is the main question that I had written down that I wanted to ask you when I first called you, like, a week and a half ago or whatever.
Well, okay.
And I was going to ask Jamie, but now that seems weird. So I'm just asking you.
Okay. Well, I don't know that maybe Jamie has a different opinion, but I personally...
Well, maybe someone has an opinion. I'll listen to anyone's opinion,
okay,
sir.
well, I'm going to give you mine right now.
Thank you.
Here's the short one. Don't do that.
Okay.
Here's the here's the longer
Okay.
one. And I'll tell you why, because I think it's important
Thank
to
you.
understand. I
agree.
The reason why these women went into politics, and I presume, but I think it's pretty obvious, is that they have some very strong political ideas. And that they everything they do is focused on that, and that I imagine when they look into the mirror, I imagine they are like, well, okay, making an assessment of myself. I look good today. I don't look good today, or whatever it is. Right. But I think the thing that they probably feel pride about is what they've been able to achieve politically. And what they are, what they're willing to do to achieve that politically. And I think if you assess them as being hot or sexy and combine that with their roles as a congressperson, you're diminishing them. I think they would feel diminished.
Okay.
I think in the eyes of other people, it diminishes them.
Okay. Well, I think that's an entirely fair response. And when I have questions like this, I figure out who's the one best person to ask, and I try to ask that person.
Now, I will say this.
What's the best way to ask that person?
I will say this.
So I appreciate... You're the only one I've asked this, sir, and I appreciate your answer, and I'm not going to make that Twitter account.
I think that's smart.
Your response.
I think that's smart. I would say,
thank you, sir.
If you wanted to do like a sexy host of the Majority Report and make that Twitter thing.
This motherfucker. Yo, you think I'm kidding around?
No, I'm not kidding around. I'm not kidding around. But I'm just saying that,
Sexy Sam Seder. Do you want it to be Sexy Sam Seder or something else, sir?
Well,
because I'm making it right now, sir.
Well, I appreciate that.
Sexy,
but my point is,
I
think that it's
Jamie,
but you understand?
Should I make it Sexy Sam Seder or something else? I did make it Sexy Sam Seder.
Sexy Sam Cedar works. But I didn't mean to.
Guess what? Guess what? You can compete with Triple H for being sexy because now you're SSS, Triple S.
There you go.
Hashtag Triple S. Right. Hashtag SSS versus hashtag Triple H, hashtag HHH.
All right, well,
sir.
I appreciate that.
I don't want to waste your radio time. Anything else, sir?
No, that's it. Thanks so much for the call. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for taking my call, sir. And the next time I have a legitimate question to ask, and I feel you're the best person to ask, I'll be calling you.
Well, I think,
you, sir?
No, it does not. I appreciate it. And in fact, I got to say, good for you, at least to pause before you create that and have a sense that maybe there might be something going on with it. I appreciate it. Thanks for the call.
I really appreciate you just ignoring me and asking another dude if that thing was sexist. I appreciate like the respect for women that showed.
Well, I think I think you get raised in certain areas, certain people get raised without sort of having a full consciousness of the implications of different things. And I think I think he deserves at least some kudos for an awareness that like there might be, I might want to double check this idea.
Run it by somebody.
But would you say something different?
Run it by a man.
What's your perspective on that?
No, I agree with you. I also think that may have been a prank call.
Not bad one though.
I mean, if I would say if that was a prank phone call, I give that an A+. The twist was never revealed.
Well, he kind of took over the interview. I feel like he was interviewing you.
Yeah, it's true. It's good. Calling from a 310 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Oh, is it me?
Yeah.
It's Jerome from California. How you doing?
Good. How you doing? What's on your mind?
Fine. Over the last few months, I've been watching like the Democratic primary. Had a lot of things to stop and consider. One in particular is like Pete Buttigieg, man. I look at this guy. I've listened to a lot of things with his record, but I remember back like a month ago when he had like a sit-down interview on, I don't know if it was Fox. That's bad enough already. You like on Fox and.
Let's move along a little bit because we're running out of time. So what do you want to say about Buttigieg?
Sorry.
He's backtracked. He's changed his position dramatically. What?
Okay. So it's this thing with. Okay, we're all trying to argue that we need to get money out of politics, but like, there's this scandal with him and the black police chief from South Bend, and the fact that he used to advocate for medical care for all, and then he just up and changes his position the minute he starts taking money from Big Pharma. It's like, dude, you are exactly like the walking representation of everything we're trying to fight against. My question is, when are we all just going to stop and just call it as we see it?
Well, I feel like, and I appreciate the call, Jerome. I feel like we've been pretty explicit about that with Buttigieg. But the tricky part about politics is it is not only and exclusively everybody gets a vote, everybody gets an opinion. You don't necessarily have to spend a lot of time digging into this stuff, and some people just sort of like are, just dispositionally against upsetting the apple cart. So, all right. Well, time for one more call. Calling from a 2509 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Sam. This is Ronald Reagan.
Ronald Reagan from Washington State. I just, now who is your congressperson?
My congressperson is Dan Newhouse.
Oh, Dan Newhouse. Okay, not Elkind or whatever that is. I spoke to somebody up there from the Tacoma area who's running. Sharon Parsons, is it? I can't remember her name. She's a great candidate right around the corner from you, I think. Challenging an establishment Democrat. But go ahead.
Ross Broccoli was, I remember him being on the show, and he was great in those Holiday Inn commercials from, I don't know, it's got to be 15 years ago.
Indeed, it was actually closer to 20 years ago.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay.
And Ross Broccoli, of interest to you. So Ross did those Holiday Inn commercials, and then his story I sort of wove into the sequel to Who's the Caboose called Pilot Season. And then he moved back to Nebraska to become a farmer. And then a couple years later, he fell in with Mormon filmmakers. And he is the lead. Nice. He's like a big part in like a series of Mormon produced films that were like knockoffs of Home Alone. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Sounds embarrassing.
It is.
I just real quick about the set design. When Michael has his own show now, right?
Yep.
Very successful.
Very successful.
I've noticed, he likes to post links, interviews and whatnot. And when he posts pictures from his show, there's a split screen between him and the guest who has the Majority Report panel behind him. So Michael's got his thing, and then the guest is calling in apparently from your studio. And it's, first of all, kind of a cuck move on Michael's part to not, to have his own thing or whatever, but then, but not really. But from your perspective, it's a strong boss move. And as a boss, I can appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
because it's his own thing, but I guess not really.
I mean, I think that's accurate. I mean, I think it was. I think the superstructure, as they would call it, is built upon the show, and so as a strong boss move for me to just remind people of that.
I mean, look, there's no shame. I know some people in the studio want to shame the PMCs of the world, but it feels good to be in it when you're in it. So there's that. So real quick, can I say something real quick about Ukraine?
Yes.
Yeah. So in 2014, when everything was going on in Maidan and there was this uprising, my wife had family that was down there, protesting, and we met with some folks from Socialist Alternative in Seattle who are good people, and you should donate money to them, and they're great. But they were sort of saying, oh yeah, all of that's just the CIA, and it's all sort of anti-Russian bullshit or whatever, which it's not. Like, it's a young country, and they're trying to figure things out, and people want freedom, and they don't want to be ruled by corruption, which they are. And I think there's this tendency on the left to blow off these sorts of things. And I know on Chapo Trap House, which is a fun show, but I think it was Matt said that Ukraine is a stupid fake country, and that this whole thing is dumb and fake or whatever. It doesn't matter. And it's easy to be cynical about American foreign policy because most of the things we do are obviously in our own self-interest, and we don't have a great track record. But every once in a while, we actually are trying to help certain countries or people, and maybe it's just because the interests happen to align.
Exactly.
That's fine. But the bottom line is, Zelensky was elected, and people were excited or are excited about the potential of turning some sort of corner, and to see our mob boss president go in and basically corner him into making some phony statement about a phony investigation, and to see all these things coming from our side, it's highly problematic, and it's really disturbing. And I also think you're right that keeping it in the news is good. I know people who didn't vote in 2016 because there was just a sense that Hillary, there's just a thing, right? And emails, Benghazi, whatever, they don't follow any of that, but there's just a feeling of corruption. And I think, especially when somebody's actually corrupt, it's good to just keep that in the air and to keep it going, because, it's not always just about motivating people to become hardcore leftists or whatever. Sometimes it's just about convincing people that Trump seems icky. And I think that impeachment is doing that, but also people shouldn't shy away from the merits of the case that's being made by the Democrats. Maybe they could make it in other areas or on other issues, but this is a real thing, and real people are affected. So
yeah, I mean, I do think that there is a weird predisposition, where, look, things are, as far as I can tell, very nuanced, let's say, in Latin America, right? Like, I don't know that that any of the leaders who are deposed by the United States are perfect leaders, who are not engaging in some measure of corruption or whatnot. And they're, largely the ones that we eliminate in Latin America, the ones that we help depose, are working against corporate interests in this country, and because they're basically trying to help their own country, and they're trying to help a broad base of people. And so it may be a little bit easier on the left to make an assessment of, like, whose side should I be on in this instance? When you're talking about Ukraine, there's a process that's developing there that is, they're trying, you like you say, you have this revolution in 2014, and there's an attempt to sort of build institutions, and people's aspirations in that country are no less valid than the aspirations of people in any other country, obviously. But I think sometimes that gets lost. And the implications of having the United States as a big bully, even if Donald Trump is not aligned with the national security apparatus that's existed in their perspective on on Ukraine, to have them come in as they're trying to deal with this problem of corruption, which is, it seems to me, one of the major issues in that country. Obviously, the other issue is that they have an occupying army in part of it, but trying to establish institutions that people trust. After years of living under Soviet rule, where there was a lot of skepticism towards the government, and I imagine a certain amount of corruption that was endemic to that system as well, and have somebody come in there and basically say, like, I want you to do just the one or two major corrupt acts for your stuff, is it's highly problematic. And I think, it's a harder thing to do to assess when the United States is doing good, because it's not necessarily doing good for all the right reasons, versus when the United States is clearly doing bad for all the bad reasons. And I think it's like in that former group that, what's happening in Ukraine is harder for people, on the left to appreciate.
Well, let me ask you this, though. Because you said that people who didn't vote in 2016 because of the perception that there's this widespread corruption and nothing we do matters, right? So, like, I feel like it could go one of two ways now, but it's entirely plausible to me that if people see all of these corruption crimes out in the open and they see that Trump suffers no consequences for them, they might say, oh, this is why we really need to vote out the Republican Party. Or they might also say, nothing we do matters. This system allowed them to do that. I don't care.
I guess so. In other words, like, being acquitted or not impeached or not, what's the word?
Being impeached, but not removed. He's going to get impeached. We all understand that, right? He's going to be impeached.
Right.
But he will not be convicted in the Senate, is my guess.
Yeah, he'll still be president at the end of it.
Nobody wants to be impeached.
I don't know. I can't guess, I guess, what some of those people might think. I do think, just in general, Trump had the advantage of being an outsider, which some people took to be a good thing, and now he's got all kinds of political stank all over him, and it's going to be hard for him to run as, I'm just a regular dude who isn't involved in politics, and so it's important to keep these kinds of stories in the news, which they weren't able to do without impeachment. So I don't know. I see the value in that, but and I guess the last point. Even if you think Ukraine is like a dumb fake country or whatever, leftists need to be, in my opinion, at least cynically engaged in the impeachment inquiry, because the underlying, when you take a step back, what was happening was Trump was trying to get his opponent at least have the air of corruption. But, he's talked about putting his political opponents in jail. And if it is a Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren or whoever, he's going to focus that same effort on whoever the candidate is. And if we're going to sit this out as like, well, whatever, this is all dumb, and we can't then feign outrage when Jane Sanders is going to jail or Bernie Sanders is under some bullshit investigation. So at least cynically pretend to care is my position.
It's the Lula example, and I agree with you. I think there are people that project that they're over it or something, and I think it's not silly.
Right. If you allow him to get away with it with one candidate and don't impeach the validity of these type of conspiracy theories, it's going to be very easy for him to do this with the other candidates, regardless of who it is. Thank you for that, Ronald Reagan.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. That's a great point. It is a great point, a great reason to, at the very least, make sure that all this stuff is fully debunked, and that the ability, if Trump wins, let's be clear here. If Trump wins, it's going to be because he has been able to make enough mud stick on his opponent. And regardless of who you think that opponent should be, it would take me 30 seconds to come up with the mud that he's going to throw at Warren, at Sanders, at Buttigieg, Biden, we already know. It would take me 30 seconds. I could lay out both Warren and Bernie's right now. And unless there is a meta-narrative that is established, and this is what impeachment does on some level, that these accusations are just bunk, that there is no false equivalency, that you should not stay at home because you think that both sides are full of it. And there's going to be people who say that. It's just that you need to slice off just a segment of those people and have them believe like there's some serious stuff. Like that lady we saw in the first clip. You're still going to have the guy in the second, the first clip, which is like, I didn't think there was much to this, but I watched it and it looked pretty serious to me. And then you had the other guy who's like, I think it's just political haranguing on both sides. You're not going to get the second guy. But the first woman, you may get her. You may get her to make the assessment that, like, wait a second, when he says that, Jane Sanders bankrupt this college and got a fraudulent loan, and Bernie Sanders is involved in whatever it is, running gold bullion, and because he's got 3 homes. You want people to be able to distinguish between the validity of those two narratives.
Well, I would hope if we run someone like Bernie, it'll be a lot harder to make it stick, where it's just like utterly ridiculous on its face, than if we run someone like Biden, whose corruption is like normal and legal, right? But to the average
from
person,
your perspective, the
might
average
not
person
seem that different than what Trump is doing.
The average person has no more sense that Bernie is any less corrupt than Joe Biden.
Really? I mean, he's not a Democrat.
Really?
Like, people think of the Democrats as being sort of endemically
The
corrupt.
average person does not know that Bernie Sanders is not a Democrat because he's registered as a Democrat in this party. But even if they didn't think he was a Democrat, they think he's a politician. The average person, Jamie, the average person sees no difference between Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders in terms of their ability to have you get me those 10 average people and you give me 3 minutes to tell them a story, and I can guarantee you they'll walk out of there thinking that Bernie Sanders is corrupt. If they don't think that if they think that I'm a legitimate voice, yes, of course. And just corrupt enough to say, like, there's no point.
Well, maybe the real power move is for the left to act like corruption doesn't matter across the board. That way they can't get one of ours for it.
Well, the left may think that, but the election's going to happen with the American public. I mean, what the left, I think, regardless of where you are on the left, needs to start appreciating is that their agenda is going nowhere unless you get people who don't give a crap about politics to vote a certain way. That's just the reality of having an electorate of 250 million people or so who the vast, overwhelming majority of them don't pay attention to politics. And you can either look at that as a problem or not. And it's not just because they're not hearing what they did, don't care. And you don't need all of them to. You need a base of people who do care, who are pushing in a certain direction. But to assume that it's going to be harder to paint Bernie Sanders as corrupt than Joe Biden, or at least put enough doubt in people's minds that it might impact the election, I think is incredibly naive.
You really don't think people make a differentiate between Bernie Sanders and the Democratic Party as a whole, which is largely a failed brand in many parts of the country? Like, he talks all the time about taking on the Democratic establishment, and he's popular among independents for that reason.
Have even heard him speak. I don't think most people have heard more than 3 minutes of Bernie Sanders speak.
I mean, I think there's an authenticity gap between Biden and Bernie.
I would agree.
I mean, I don't think it. I think.
Do you think the 30% that support Biden up to this point versus? I mean, how much more does Biden have to do to not have support? Go to Joe 3030. I mean, every single person that we talked to, that was it. The guy's losing his marbles. He's still got the, I mean, maybe he's dropping in the polls now, but I don't know that it's because of an authenticity gap. I think that's one of Joe Biden's strengths, is that he comes off as being authentic. I don't know if he is or not. But, I mean, people need to, I think, like, really try and get outside of their sort of like their assumptions about what other people think. Because it would be, and if Bernie is the nominee, I guarantee you, people are going to know a lot about Jane Sanders and banks up in Burlington and colleges, and we're all going to know, Bernie's house. And if it's Elizabeth Warren, we're going to know about every time that she advised for, a corporation and in bankruptcy as to, how they should restructure themselves. And if it's Deval Patrick, they'll probably just take the thing that Newt Gingrich ran and run that against him. They used it for Romney. I mean, you go across the board. And how successful they are will be in part a function of, like, I don't think there's a natural constituency for Joe Biden that is that, excited to engage enough that they're out there, pushing back hard on the Hunter Biden thing. But the thing is, it's largely irrelevant relative to the impeachment. So, and I think there's probably a lot of people out there who go like, I couldn't get my kid to do stuff that I told him to do. My kid's an F up. I mean, I just
don't know if people aren't listening, if we can't get people to listen to more than like 1 minute of Bernie Sanders talking, if there's any hope of getting them to differentiate between the different kinds of corruption.
Right.
Like, people perceive politicians as corrupt in general.
Correct. Bernie's been a senator for 10 years. He was a congressman for 10, 20 years. He was a mayor. Guess what? Bernie's a politician. And you and I may have a sense of him as a different kind of politician, which I happen to think is totally accurate. But the average person who's not paying attention, who hasn't watched, I mean, look at how many people have watched the debates? 10, 20 million, maybe total. There's a lot of people out there who are going to vote against Donald Trump, who right now are just saying, like, tell me who the nominee is. That's just the reality of it. And that's why I think that, like, this is a good time to get leftist politicians in, because there's going to be some people going to show up despite, having any agreement or sense of that I'm with that agenda. But, all right, let's, this is super sad, and I want to talk about this. What's going on with my good friend Charlie Kirk? Now, if you follow the IDW, which is the intellectual dark web, if you read the New York Times, who have op-ed writers like Barry Weiss and others, who have been talking about, or even if you follow comedy and you've heard from Jerry Seinfeld, you know how much of a problem it is with college students shutting down other voices who come to their colleges and almost in a violent, yelling fashion, not letting the spread of ideas happen. And so I am sure if you were to go to the Twitter feeds of all of these IDW people who are there, it's not about partisanship. It's about the exchange of ideas. I'm sure there's an op-ed right now in the New York Times bemoaning this latest version, because, I mean, how many days did the whole thing about some op-ed written by a college newspaper when they were talking about, interviewing college students who went to a protest, they apologized, and how appalled every single person on my Twitter feed, from the center and the right was like appalled. This is a horrible. College students. Snowflakes, but also like quashing of ideas. This is appalling.
God, leave the children alone, people.
This is the third example of this mob of students shutting down the expression of conservatives on campus. And yet we hear nothing about it. Maybe because it's conservatives shutting down the ideas of other conservatives. I mean, talk about purity tests. Just because Charlie Kirk won't publicly denounce gay people, just because Charlie Kirk won't publicly, because we know that TPUSA in some of their chats, they've had some problems with racism and anti-Semitism, but just because he won't say anti-Semitic things or racist things publicly, he's getting shouted down by another crew of conservative students. This is horrible. Here is an example of that right now. Here is Charlie Kirk on a campus, and he gets...
Calls
him a Groyper grifter. And loses the crowd entirely. I mean, when's the right going to confront this? It's got out of hand.
Wow.
America first! America first! America first! America first! America first! America first! America first!
Wow. Charlie Kirk forced off of campus by people yelling America first. This is, I'm sure, Barry Weiss. Will you pull up the Barry Weiss piece on this and put it up on the big board? Do we not have that? Has that not been produced yet? All right.
I'm sure she's working on it.
Will you pull up the tweets by Dave Rubin? Because he was all over this, I'm sure, talking. Because this is the third time this has happened in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks. We don't have it? Oh, that is unfortunate. Wow. And then we have this moment that was put together
by Jordan Ewell.
Yeah. Now, Turning Points USA is involved in what they call Culture War tour. Now, ostensibly, it is supposed to be about the war is supposed to be between the left and the right. And like I say, the problem that Turning Points USA is having is they're having a culture war on the right. They create these monsters. Charlie Kirk gives them a model of how you can grift and make some money, and then people go out and do it, and then they complain about it. It's really sad. I mean, it's like, hey, wait a second. It's like one of those things where, like, I remember when I was a kid, you could go in the back of a comic book and it would say, like, learn how to make $200 a week or $100 a week just stuffing envelopes. Send $15 to this address and we will send you the directions on how to do it. And so, of course, you know, at the time I was quite an entrepreneur. I sent the money in and they send back and they basically tell you to do exactly what they just did. Set up ads in the back of comic books, tell people they can make $100, $200 a week by stuffing envelopes. And that's all they got to do. You put that ad in, then people do the exact same thing. You charge $15 and you turn around. I never did it, but I ended up selling seeds. But that's what's basically happening with Charlie Kirk. And now this is really interesting. You've got these people coming up and trying to mischaracterize what Charlie Kirk has said in the past. And fortunately, it's totally messed up. Fortunately, we have video. So let's play. Jordan, you'll put this together. This is a clip of someone making an accusation towards Charlie Kirk on this culture war tour. And then there was a video that came up of Charlie Kirk's own words. And this is, you hate to see something like this.
My question is for Charlie. Charlie, I wanted to ask you about you trying to get into West Point. You said that you applied to West Point, but they gave your place to an applicant of a different gender and persuasion. I know the test scores and I knew the qualifications. She was less qualified. So my question is, if they were of different gender, do you know what gender they were?
I never said that. That's fake news. Thanks for being here tonight.
Pause it. There it is. Fake news, he says. He says it without a doubt. This is at the Culture War. There is Rand Paul is on stage with him. Oh, wow. Yeah, there you go. See you Monday. And but unfortunately, to be fair, this is probably a video from almost like 3 or 4 years ago. Here's Charlie Kirk in a classroom back in the day.
And unfortunately, I was waitlisted and things kind of started to get a little bit odd, and I eventually lost my spot out to what I felt was a far less qualified applicant in my district that was of a different gender and a different persuasion. You could take it any way you want, but I knew the test scores, I knew the qualifications. I was kind of got the short end of the stick.
There you go.
I think it's a lie by Turning Points USA.
Yeah. Now, I wonder if that guy is part of that, those groypers are supposedly. I don't know. We can't tell. But the point is that somebody out there is really making an effort showing that Charlie Kirk is fabricating things. But I just want to know where the heck all these free speech warriors are, because they're not protecting the ability of TPUSA to speak.
If Charles Murray was heckled like Charlie was just then, we'd have heard about it.
You think by right-wingers?
By Barry Weiss and people like that.
I would hope so, but I suspect that the problem is that they don't want to criticize conservative people who are criticizing other people on campus.
Charlie Kirk says white nationalism has no place in the conservative movement, but he's yet to say anything about Stephen Miller. So
that's very strange.
I mean, with any luck, this is a sign that the right-wing coalition is falling apart. Right. Hopefully, like, the white nationalists are turning on the neoliberal center-rightists, and pretty soon they're just all going to take each other out.
Well, they need exposure, and it also is fatal to them. So it's a difficult balancing act.
It's a tough trick. But, my experience is that they just, these are just basically same industry, different companies vying for funding and whatnot. And at the end of the day, they all function as an industry. On the right, they're all going to vote for Donald Trump. It's just now they're just trying to lay claim as who's more Trumpist.
Who gets the fracking billionaire money.
Exactly. And that's what Charlie Kirk has got to be a little bit worried, because he's got some competition now.
What if he hears Foster Freeze took a meeting with Fuentes?
Let's just check in on Bolivia. Now, to be fair, the same Supreme Court that said that Evo Morales it was legal for him to run again, has supposedly signed off on the interim presidency of Janine Áñez Chávez. She is a lawmaker. Now, she was next in line in succession after the military coup got everybody else in line of succession to resign with the, I don't know what kind of threat it is that you get from the military, but, you know, the military is known for one thing usually, and that is
constitutional law.
Constitutional law or controlled violence and or not controlled violence, targeted violence. And so a lot of those people resigned, and it left Janine Áñez Chávez supposedly the next in line in succession. Supposedly the Supreme Court has signed off on it. Remember, the argument here is not whether Evo Morales was a good guy or a bad guy. I think, I tend to think that as far as Bolivian presidents go, probably pretty good. But your mileage may vary. But there is a thing called democracy. And there is a thing called rule of law. And there are things called military coups. And regardless of what you think of the players involved and whether you think it's justified, if you think a military coup was justified, then you should say the military coup was justified. But to say that it is a democratic response seems just simply inaccurate in terms of the facts. We know that Evo Morales, even if he didn't run for president, was the perfectly legitimate president of Bolivia until December, when his term was to end. But he was driven out of the country by a military takeover of the government. They installed a lawmaker who was in succession only because the military deposed everybody who was ahead of her in the line of succession. Is that democracy? Is she a democratic figure? The one who tweeted out, and to be fair, it was 5 or 6 years ago, people change. Quote, "I dream of a Bolivia free of indigenous satanic rites. The city is not for, quote, Indians. They better go to the highlands or El Chaco." That is the new president of Bolivia. And just to put a finer point on it, here she is, marching through the streets into the presidency, carrying a Bible, saying the Bible returns to the palace. Let's play this.
La presidenta está llegando al antiguo palacio presidencial con una Biblia, al parecer.
Yeah, there's the Bible.
Es en la que se va
the biggest Bible I've ever seen.
En el recinto antiguo. Dice que
ha permitido que la Biblia vuelva a entrar a palacio. Que Él nos bendiga. ¡Gloria a Dios! ¡Gloria a Dios! ¡Dios nos bendiga, nuestro presidente!
La Biblia vuelve a palacio.
The Bible returns to the palace. There you go.
Democracy.
One of the stalwarts of democracy that you want to get rid of all the indigenous people and send them to specific parts of the country, far-flung parts of the country, so that the Bible can retain its proper place at the democracy.
That famous French Revolution phrase, the Bible returns to the palace.
Exactly.
But keep on saying it's complicated, liberals.
Nuance, folks.
Well, it's not just liberals, to be fair.
They should know better.
One would expect. One would indeed expect. Here is Bernie Sanders speaking about U.S. foreign policy in Latin America. One of my favorite parts of the 2016 election was there was one debate where he basically said, Henry Kissinger is not my friend. And he basically said stuff on a debate stage that I don't know that we'd ever heard any American president say. Certainly no one who was in top contention. But even marginal figures in the past, marginal in terms of how much support they had, in part because they had so little time to talk, they never got around to saying these type of things that Bernie Sanders had said on that debate stage. And he is maintaining that theme here in Las Vegas.
That is, all of you know that the history of the United States' relationship to Latin America has been, to say paternalistic would be an understatement. All right, the so-called Monroe Doctrine. You're all familiar with the Monroe Doctrine. And what it said is, it's a great doctrine if you're in the United States, which says the United States has the right to intervene in any country around the world, in Latin America. So back in the 1970s, the United States, Richard Nixon, Henry Kissinger, overthrew the democratically elected government of Salvador Allende because he was a threat to the corporate interest in this country. All right, overthrown governments in Brazil, overthrown governments in the Dominican Republic, supported terrible people in El Salvador, which resulted in God knows how many murders and deaths. So what we need is a foreign policy in which the United States respects the independence of countries in Latin America and in Mexico. We work together to improve the standard of living of all of our people. I voted against NAFTA.
There you go. There's Bernie Sanders basically, on the campaign trail, taking up issues that, frankly, I don't think that Bernie Sanders, if he did not address these things, it would inhibit his popularity at all. Maybe on the contrary. But super important for people to understand the context of what things are happening in the world today that are in the sphere of influence of the United States, which largely is, in many respects, we influence stuff all around the world, for better or for worse. Why we have things like tens of thousands of children who their parents are willing to send to the United States to seek safety, largely because we destroyed the nascent civil structures of many of these countries. We undermined them such that ultimately this is the natural progression. I mean, to a certain extent, it's also like it's why you need to have things like impeachment if it's quite obvious that your president is corrupt. Because over time, if you do not nurture these institutions that maintain the rule of law, you start getting stuff like we develop, you turn into a narco state. I think I would imagine that part of the reason why a certain percentage of Hispanic immigrants in this country who come from some of these Latin American countries, why there is a culture of that in which there is less fervor to vote amongst Hispanics than maybe other groups, is in part a function of like, we vote for people who give us some material benefit, and then 2 years later, they're ousted in a military coup that the United States or whomever, applauds.
Oh, well, there is also, unfortunately, a pretty powerful faction or group of Hispanic immigrants who come from the ruling class of their respective nations and will certainly not look kindly upon any Democratic candidate who talks this kind of anti-imperial talk that Bernie
Without a
is
doubt.
doing.
I think those people are already voting for the Republicans.
We love Latinas.
Probably.
My understanding, and I got a buddy who's actually someone I went to college with who is a radio host, big radio host in that world. And he told me that Trump got 30% of the Hispanic vote. If he gets 25%, he can't win. And
I think Bernie just saying this, I think a problem Democrats have just as a brand is that the Republicans have been this menace for like decades now. And the Democrats sort of have taken this tact where they have to be kind of disingenuous about that, where they have like, we can work with these people a little bit sort of thing. And just being forthright about what we're actually up against. I mean, I think there's a lot of people that know one, the GOP is a menace, and two, like our foreign policy in places is complete. Well, I guess he called it like patriarchal and authoritarian, and I think people just like to see that, coming out of a politician's mouth.
Yep, it's helpful to drop a little bit of truth.
And Bernie's the only one who's doing that right now.
That's true. That is without a doubt true. Let's do this last one of the Commissioner, Mark Morgan. One of the things that Donald Trump has been telling us, the wall's been being built and built and built. And apparently there has been like several hundred yards of wall, maybe, that have been built. Maybe not several hundred yards, maybe 100 yards. Apparently part of that is they've already found that people are sawing through it at different points. And to the extent that any of the wall has been built, it was basically just repairing existing wall or just changing the existing wall. And here's how you get fired in the Trump administration. I think the countdown probably begins with this guy, or we'll have to wait for his public apology. Mark Morgan, Customs and Border Protection acting commissioner, because of course they're all just acting in this White House, in this administration. Here is being asked about the new border wall construction. How's that going, Mark?
Promoted the construction of a border wall as one of the key deterrent efforts to try to keep migrants from coming into this country illegally. Just for a status update for us, how many miles of wall has been constructed? Not wall that's replacing old wall, but new wall has been built to this point.
So 78 miles of new wall has been built.
So much of that obviously is replacing wall that formerly existed, the president said was insufficient. How many miles of wall now exist where there was no wall whatsoever?
So again, my response to that is every mile of wall that's being built is a new mile of wall.
No disagreement. But how many? But just for a breakdown, how many miles formerly existed that have now been renovated or replaced, and how many miles new where nothing existed?
So right now, the 78 miles that have been built where there was an existing form of barrier. We just started breaking ground in RGV, where we're building miles of new wall where there has been no structure there at all.
So that's just now starting. The construction of new walls begins.
That's correct.
Now.
That's correct.
Yeah, there he is. So let me do that in truth talking speak. There's no new wall. We're breaking ground. We're breaking ground. Not breaking ground. That's a very slow process. So you got to drive there. You got to buy a shovel. You got to dig it in there. No new wall. There's new wall. Just not new in terms of like in a place that it wasn't before.
I saw the wall when I was in Tijuana. Very weird to see it in real life.
Isn't it?
It just seems very wrong and unnatural to have a wall.
Renovate the wall.
Like, it's nuts.
Mexico's going to pay for the renovations of the wall. Folks, I wish we had more time to take more calls, but we don't. I wish we had more time to talk to you and to read more IMs, but we don't. We've already done over 3 hours of a show today, and that's plenty. We will see you Monday. Next week is going to be a complete, get some rest, folks. Send power bars and get some rest yourself. We will see you Monday.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the light bulb, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light's shining bright. I guess somewhere the choice was made for the option where you don't get paid, for the road that bends before it finally breaks you. I guess somehow I lost my drive between the 101 and the 5. Do you know how far but the meds